Three wealthy men thought they could intimidate anyone in that restaurant until they cornered the wrong woman in front of the wrong father. What happened in the next 60 seconds would expose a dangerous past, change two lives forever, and prove that the most ordinary-looking people sometimes carry the most extraordinary secrets. This is the story of a single dad whose worn-out hoodie concealed years of elite military training, and the CEO who saw past his exhaustion to the warrior hiding beneath. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The lunch rush at Riverside Terrace Cafe hit like it always did, loud, chaotic, and relentless. The clatter of dishes mixed with overlapping conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the constant shuffle of waitstaff weaving between packed tables. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching dust particles floating in the warm air and casting everything in a golden haze that made the whole place feel almost dreamlike. Ryan Carter sat in the far corner booth, the same one he always requested when he could get it. 32 years old, but looking older, he slouched against the cracked vinyl seat wearing faded jeans with a hole in one knee and an old gray hoodie that had seen better days about 5 years ago. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, the permanent kind that came from too many nights working security shifts and too few hours of actual sleep. His brown hair needed a cut. His beard needed a trim. Everything about him screamed exhausted, working-class dad barely keeping his head above water. Across from him, 60-year-old Emma Carter, colored with fierce concentration, her tongue poking out slightly as she carefully stayed inside the lines of a princess castle. Her dark curls, so much like her mother's had been, fell across her forehead as she hunched over her coloring book, completely absorbed in her work. "Daddy, what color should the flag be?" she asked without looking up. Ryan glanced at the drawing. "What do you think?" "Purple. But Maddie at school says flags aren't purple." "Maddie doesn't live in this castle," Ryan said, pushing her chocolate milk closer before she knocked it over again. "Your castle, your rules." Emma grinned and grabbed the purple crayon with renewed confidence. Ryan watched her for a moment, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest, the one that showed up whenever he thought about how much she looked like Sarah. 3 years gone now, and some days it still didn't feel real. Car accident, drunk driver, gone before the ambulance arrived. Emma had been 3 years old, barely old enough to remember her mother's face without photographs. He'd become everything after that: mother, father, cook, cleaner, homework helper, monster under the bed checker. He worked overnight security shifts at a warehouse 4 nights a week because the pay was slightly better, and it meant he could be home during the day when Emma needed him. He slept in fragments, a few hours after his shift before she woke up. Another couple hours while she napped, if he was lucky. Maybe more if she went to bed early. It wasn't sustainable. He knew that. His body knew that. But what choice did he have? The waitress, Karen, mid-50s, perpetually frazzled, appeared with their food. Grilled cheese for Emma, cut into triangles the way she liked. A burger for Ryan that he'd probably eat half of before exhaustion killed his appetite. "Anything else, hun?" Karen asked, already scanning the room for other tables that needed attention. "We're good, thanks." She disappeared into the chaos. Ryan took a bite of his burger without tasting it, his eyes automatically scanning the restaurant out of habit. Old habits. The kind that didn't die just because you wanted them to. He cataloged exits. Noted the couple arguing in hushed tones 3 tables over. Marital problems, not a threat. Registered the businessman on his phone by the window, too focused on his call to notice anything around him. Tracked the movement of staff, the flow of customers, the blind spots in the room. It was involuntary now, like breathing. Emma hummed while she ate, swinging her legs under the table, completely safe in her little bubble of childhood innocence. She had no idea that her father spent every moment in public places calculating escape routes and assessing potential dangers. She didn't know about the knife he kept clipped inside his pocket, or the fact that he could reach it in under a second if he needed to. She didn't know a lot of things about who he used to be, and if Ryan had his way, she never would. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after?" "Maybe, if you finish your vegetables at dinner." "We're having vegetables?" "We're always having vegetables, Em." She wrinkled her nose but didn't argue, too focused on her grilled cheese. That's when Ryan noticed them. 3 men had just entered through the main entrance, and something about them immediately set off alarm bells in Ryan's head. Mid to late 30s, expensive suits that screamed money and entitlement, the kind of swagger that came from never being told no. The first one, tall, blonde, watch that probably cost more than Ryan made in 3 months, led the way. The other two flanked him like an entourage. They weren't here for lunch, they were here to be seen having lunch. Ryan watched them scan the crowded restaurant with visible irritation, clearly expecting a table to materialize just because they'd shown up. The hostess, a college kid named Amy, who always snuck Emma extra crayons, tried to explain that there'd be a 20-minute wait. 20 minutes? The blonde one said, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. Do you know who I am? Ryan almost smiled. That line never got old. Amy kept her professional smile in place, but Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders. I understand, sir, but we're completely full right now. If you'd like to wait at the bar. I don't want to wait at the bar, he snapped. I want a table. His eyes swept the room and landed on a woman sitting alone by the window. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a charcoal business suit that was professional without being flashy. She had a laptop open in front of her and was clearly working through lunch, a barely touched salad pushed to the side. The blonde man's expression shifted into something entitled and predatory. Perfect, he said, already moving toward her table. Ryan's attention sharpened. Emma was still coloring, oblivious. The three men approached the woman's table like they owned the place. She didn't look up from her laptop until the blonde one was standing directly beside her, casting a shadow across her screen. Excuse me, she said, her voice polite but firm, professional. Can I help you? Yeah, actually, the blonde one said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. We need this table. So if you could pack up your little work project and move along, that'd be great. The woman, Ryan could see her name card on the table now, Victoria Hayes, looked up at him with an expression of calm disbelief. I reserved this table. You can check with the hostess. I don't need to check with anyone, he said, his voice dropping into something uglier. I'm asking nicely. We need this table. And I'm telling you nicely, Victoria replied, her tone never wavering from professional courtesy, that this table is reserved, and I'm not moving. The restaurant had started to notice now. Conversations were quieting. People were turning to watch. Ryan felt his muscles tense, that old familiar awareness flooding his system. He knew how this was going to go. He'd seen it 100 times in 100 different places. Men like this didn't handle rejection well. They escalated. Daddy? Emma had noticed his attention was elsewhere. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Keep coloring. One of the other men, stockier, darker hair, leaned in closer to Victoria's table. Lady, you're really going to make this difficult. Just move. I'm not making anything difficult, Victoria said, still calm. You're the ones demanding someone else's table. The blonde one's jaw tightened. Do you know who I am? No, Victoria said simply. And I don't care. That did it. Ryan saw the shift in the man's body language. The way his hands clenched, the way his weight shifted forward. Aggression looking for an outlet. Okay, you know what? The blonde man reached for Victoria's laptop. She pulled it back smoothly. Don't touch my things. I'll touch whatever I want, he snarled, and this time he reached for her arm. Ryan was already moving. He didn't think about it. Didn't plan it. His body just reacted the way it had been trained to react for years. Efficiently, precisely, without hesitation. Emma, stay there, he said quietly as he slid out of the booth. He crossed the restaurant in 4 long strides, his sneakers making no sound on the tile floor. The blonde man's hand was closing around Victoria's forearm when Ryan's hand closed around the blonde man's wrist. I wouldn't, Ryan said quietly. The blonde man spun, ready to unleash his anger on whoever had the audacity to interfere, and then he saw Ryan. Saw the exhausted-looking guy in the worn hoodie who didn't look like any kind of threat at all. Mind your own business, the man snapped, trying to yank his arm free. Ryan didn't let go. His grip was precise, firm enough to control the man's movement, but not hard enough to injure. Not yet. She asked you to leave, Ryan said, his voice still quiet. Calm. The kind of calm that was more dangerous than shouting. So leave. Get your hands off me, the blonde man said, his face reddening. He tried again to pull away, putting real force behind it this time. Ryan adjusted his grip slightly, applying pressure to a specific point on the man's wrist that made his fingers go instantly numb. The man gasped, and Ryan smoothly rotated the arm into a lock that forced him to bend forward to avoid the pain. It took less than 2 seconds. The whole restaurant had gone silent now. "What the? Let go!" the blond man yelped, suddenly off balance and helpless. His 2 friends started forward, ready to jump in, and Ryan's eyes flicked to them with an expression that stopped them cold. It wasn't anger, it wasn't even a threat. It was just assessment, like he was calculating exactly how quickly he could incapacitate both of them if they made that decision. They froze. "Here's what's going to happen," Ryan said, still using that same quiet, almost conversational tone while he kept the blond man locked in place. "You're going to apologize to this woman. Then you're going to walk out of here and find somewhere else to have lunch. And we're all going to forget this happened." "I'm not apologizing to—" The blond man tried to resist, and Ryan applied just enough additional pressure to make his point. "Try again," Ryan said. The restaurant was dead silent. Even the kitchen had stopped clattering. The blond man's face was red with humiliation and pain, but he could feel every eye in the place on him. He could feel the absolute control Ryan had over his movement, the effortless way this tired-looking dad in a hoodie was making him completely helpless. "I'm sorry," he bit out through clenched teeth. "Look at her when you say it," Ryan said. The blond man's eyes found Victoria's. "I'm sorry." Victoria just nodded once, her expression unreadable. Ryan held him there for 1 more second, long enough to make sure the lesson stuck, then released him with a smooth motion that made it clear the release was a choice, not a victory. The blond man stumbled back, cradling his wrist, his face a mixture of rage and humiliation. His friends caught him by the elbows. "You have no idea who you just—" he started. "I don't care," Ryan interrupted, his tone still flat and calm. "Leave." For a moment it could have gone either way. The blond man looked like he wanted to do something stupid, consequences be damned. His friends were clearly trying to decide if their loyalty extended to getting beaten up in a restaurant over a table. Then Amy, the hostess, appeared with the manager, and the decision was made for them. "Gentlemen," the manager said, a balding man in his 50s who looked deeply uncomfortable, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The blond man opened his mouth to argue, but one of his friends grabbed his arm. "Come on, Marcus. It's not worth it." They left, Marcus shooting one last venomous look at Ryan before the door closed behind them. The restaurant slowly came back to life. Conversations resumed. Silverware clinked against plates. But Ryan could feel every eye still tracking him as he turned back to Victoria's table. "You okay?" he asked. Victoria looked up at him with an expression that was part gratitude, part intense curiosity, and part something else he couldn't quite identify. "I'm fine," she said. "Thank you. That was impressive." Ryan shrugged uncomfortably. "It was nothing." "That wasn't nothing," Victoria said, her eyes sharp and analytical now. "That was training, serious training." Ryan felt that old familiar urge to deflect, to disappear, to not be noticed. "Just trying to help. Enjoy your lunch." He started to turn away. "Wait," Victoria said. "Please, let me at least buy you and your daughter lunch. That's the least I can do." Ryan hesitated. He didn't like attention, didn't like questions, didn't like people looking too closely at him. But Emma had appeared at his elbow, having abandoned her coloring book to see what the commotion was about. "Daddy, why were those men being mean to that lady?" she asked, her hand finding his. Victoria's expression softened immediately when she saw Emma. "They weren't very nice," she said, addressing Emma directly. "But your dad helped me. He's very brave." Emma looked up at Ryan with pride. "My daddy's the bravest." Ryan felt his chest tighten again, different than before, warmer. "Please," Victoria said again, gesturing to the empty chairs at her table. "Join me. I insist." Ryan looked at Emma, who was already nodding eagerly at the prospect of sitting at the fancy window table, and knew he'd lost this battle. "Okay," he said, "just for a few minutes." They moved to Victoria's table, Emma bouncing into the chair across from her while Ryan took the seat that gave him the best view of the entrance and exits. Old habits. "I'm Victoria," she said, extending her hand first to Emma. "What's your name?" "Emma Carter," Emma said, shaking hands with exaggerated seriousness. I'm 6.5. 6.5 is a very important age, Victoria said seriously. And who's this? She gestured to Emma's well-worn stuffed rabbit that went everywhere. That's Mr. Hopsworth, Emma explained. He's shy. I understand completely. I'm Ryan, Ryan added, shaking Victoria's hand. Her grip was firm, confident. Business professional. Ryan, Victoria repeated, studying him with those sharp, analytical eyes. Can I ask what you do for a living? Security, Ryan said automatically, the standard deflection. Night shifts mostly, nothing exciting. Uh-huh, Victoria said, clearly not buying it, but polite enough not to push. Well, your nothing exciting security training just prevented what could have been a very ugly situation. So thank you. Karen reappeared, looking relieved to see the drama was over. Everything okay over here? Perfect, Victoria said. Can you bring their lunch to this table and add it to my bill? You don't have to, Ryan started. I insist, Victoria said firmly. Please. Karen nodded and disappeared again. Emma had already started chattering to Victoria about her coloring book, her school, her best friend Maddie, who had 2 pet hamsters, and the fact that she was learning to read chapter books now. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions and responding with the kind of attention that made Emma light up. Ryan watched the interaction, trying to reconcile the professional CEO who'd faced down 3 aggressive men without flinching with the woman who was now seriously discussing the relative merits of different crayon colors with his 6-year-old. Their food arrived. Emma dug into her grilled cheese while Victoria picked at her salad, and Ryan made himself eat the burger that had gone lukewarm. So, Victoria said after a while, her tone casual, but her eyes still curious. Military? Ryan paused mid-bite. Excuse me? Your training, the way you moved, the way you assessed the situation before acting. The joint lock you used, that wasn't security guard training. That was military, specialized military, if I had to guess. Ryan put down his burger slowly. You seem to know a lot about it. I'm in the security business, Victoria said simply. Corporate security consulting, executive protection, risk assessment. It's what I do. And what you did, she shook her head slightly, that kind of precision doesn't come from weekend self-defense classes. Ryan was quiet for a moment, debating how much to say. Emma was busy making a grilled cheese sandwich for Mr. Hopsworth from her napkin, not paying attention. I used to be military, he finally admitted. Long time ago. Different life. What unit? Can't say. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Can't or won't? Both, she smiled slightly. Fair enough. How long have you been out? About 4 years. And now you work security at where? Distribution warehouse. Overnight shifts. Victoria was quiet for a moment, and Ryan could practically see her mind working, putting pieces together. You left specialized military work to guard a warehouse at night? I left to raise my daughter, Ryan corrected quietly. The warehouse job just pays the bills. Victoria's expression shifted, understanding replacing curiosity. Her mother? Died 3 years ago. I'm sorry. Ryan shrugged, uncomfortable with sympathy. We manage. You more than manage, Victoria said, watching Emma color on Victoria's business notepad with Victoria's expensive pen. She's wonderful. She's everything, Ryan said simply. They ate in silence for a few minutes, Emma filling the quiet with her running commentary on her coloring. Finally, Victoria pulled a business card from her laptop bag and slid it across the table. Ryan picked it up. Victoria Hayes, CEO, and founder Hayes Strategic Protection Group. The address was downtown. The website looked professional. The card itself was high quality, embossed lettering. We specialize in executive protection, corporate security consulting, and high-level threat assessment, Victoria said. We train security professionals for Fortune 500 companies, government facilities, and high-profile individuals who need more than just a guy in a uniform standing by a door. Ryan set the card down. I'm not looking for a job. Why not? Because I left that world behind. I'm not going back. This isn't that world, Victoria said. This is about protecting people, not hurting them. It's about using your skills to keep people safe, to de-escalate situations before they become violent. What you did today, that's exactly what we train people to do. I appreciate the offer, but at least hear me out, Victoria interrupted gently. Please, what you have, those instincts, that training, that restraint under pressure, it's rare. Most people can't do what you just did. And the ones who can usually can't do it without someone getting hurt. Ryan was already shaking his head. Victoria leaned forward slightly. I'm not asking you to go back to war, Ryan. I'm offering you a chance to use everything you learned in a way that actually helps people. You'd be training others, developing protocols, running assessments. Yes, there would be field work sometimes, but nothing like what you're thinking. I've got Emma to think about, Ryan said. I can't just... Flexible hours, Victoria said immediately. You set your schedule around her school. She's your priority, and I respect that. In fact, I insist on it. Ryan looked at her skeptically. Nobody offers flexible hours for serious security work. I do, Victoria said firmly, because I've learned that the best people are the ones who have something worth protecting. They understand what's at stake better than anyone, and they bring that perspective to every job. Emma tugged on Ryan's sleeve. Daddy, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, kiddo. It's right over there. Can you see it? Yep. She slid out of her chair and headed toward the restrooms, Mr. Hopsworth under one arm. Ryan watched until she disappeared inside, then turned back to Victoria. Look, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but the answer is still no. What are you making now? Victoria asked bluntly. At the warehouse? Ryan bristled slightly. That's personal. $35,000 a year? 40, if you're lucky? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I'm offering you $90,000 to start, Victoria said, plus benefits, plus performance bonuses, for a 40-hour week that you schedule yourself around your daughter's needs. You'd make more in 1 year than you've made in the last 3 combined. Ryan felt like he'd been punched. $90,000. He tried to imagine what that kind of money could do. A real house instead of their cramped 2-bedroom apartment. A college fund for Emma. No more choosing between fixing the car and buying groceries. Why? He asked. You don't know me. You watched me for 5 minutes. I watched you assess a situation, intervene at exactly the right moment, neutralize a threat without causing injury, and de-escalate everything before it became a disaster, Victoria said. And you did it all while making sure your daughter felt safe. That tells me everything I need to know about your judgment, your skill level, and your priorities. Emma emerged from the bathroom and started back toward their table. Just think about it, Victoria said, pushing the business card back toward him. That's all I ask. My number's on there. Call me if you change your mind. Ryan pocketed the card without looking at it again. I won't, but thank you for lunch. Victoria smiled. Thank you for reminding me that there are still people who step up when it matters. They said their goodbyes. Emma hugged Victoria enthusiastically before they left, making Victoria promise to have lunch with them again sometime. Ryan led Emma back out into the bright afternoon, his mind churning. $90,000, flexible hours, a chance to actually use his training for something other than watching empty loading docks. He pushed the thoughts away as they walked to his beat-up Honda in the parking lot. Emma chattered about the nice lady with the pretty laptop and how she'd let Emma keep her fancy pen. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan sat at their small kitchen table and pulled out Victoria's business card. He'd looked up the company on his phone. Hayes Strategic Protection Group was legitimate, more than legitimate. They contracted with major corporations, had government certifications, glowing reviews from clients. Victoria Hayes herself was impressive. MBA from Penn, former consultant with a major firm before starting her own company 5 years ago. She'd built it from nothing into a multi-million-dollar operation, and she'd offered him $90,000. Ryan stared at the card for a long time, thinking about Emma's worn-out shoes and the leak in their apartment bathroom that the landlord kept promising to fix, thinking about the electricity bill he'd been late paying last month, thinking about Emma asking if they could go to the zoo, and him having to say maybe next month, knowing next month wouldn't be any different. He thought about the warehouse, the endless nights watching security monitors, the boss who treated him like he was disposable, the paycheck that never quite stretched far enough. Then he thought about Victoria's eyes when she'd talked about protection versus violence, about using his skills to help instead of hurt. His phone was in his hand before he fully realized he'd made a decision. The call connected after 2 rings. Victoria Hayes. "It's Ryan Carter," he said, "from the restaurant." There was a pause, then he could hear the smile in her voice. I was hoping you'd call. I want to hear more, Ryan said. About the job. No promises, but I'll listen. That's all I ask, Victoria said. When can you come in? They set a meeting for the following Tuesday, Emma's day at his mother's house. After he hung up, Ryan sat in the quiet kitchen, staring at nothing. This could be a mistake. This could be the best decision he'd ever made. He had no idea which. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward that wasn't just survival. Emma's door creaked open and she padded out in her pajamas, dragging Mr. Hopsworth. Daddy? Can't sleep. Bad dream? She shook her head. Just wanted to make sure you were here. Ryan picked her up, even though she was getting too big for it, settling her on his lap. I'm always here, Em. The nice lady from lunch was pretty, Emma said sleepily. I liked her. Yeah, Ryan said quietly. Me too. Emma yawned. Are we going to see her again? Ryan looked at the business card still sitting on the table. Maybe, he said. Maybe we will. He carried Emma back to bed, tucked her in, and stood in her doorway for a long moment watching her sleep. Every decision he made for her. Every risk he took had to be worth it. This felt worth it. He just hoped he was right. Tuesday morning arrived with the kind of nervous energy Ryan hadn't felt in years. He'd dropped Emma at his mother's house early, and during her pointed questions about why he needed a whole afternoon free and whether this had anything to do with that woman from the restaurant, Emma wouldn't stop talking about. It's a job interview, Mom, he'd said, avoiding her knowing look. Uh-huh. And this job interview required you to actually iron a shirt? Ryan had left before she could interrogate him further. Now he stood outside a sleek glass building in the downtown business district, checking the address on Victoria's card for the 3rd time. Hayes Strategic Protection Group occupied the entire 4th floor. The lobby was all polished marble and modern art that probably cost more than his car. He felt completely out of place in his one good button-down shirt and the khakis he'd bought at Target 2 years ago for a funeral. Everyone moving through the lobby wore suits that actually fit, carrying briefcases and talking on phones about things that sounded important. Ryan almost turned around. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Front desk knows you're coming. Take the elevator to 4. Looking forward to talking. Too late to back out now. The receptionist on the 4th floor was a polished woman in her 40s who smiled professionally when he gave his name. Ms. Hayes is expecting you. Conference room B just down that hall. The offices were impressive without being flashy. Glass walls gave views into workspaces where people studied monitors showing security camera feeds, building layouts, threat assessment reports. One room had what looked like a mock-up of a corporate lobby. Another had training mats on the floor. Victoria was waiting in a corner conference room with windows overlooking the city. She'd traded the business suit from the restaurant for dark slacks and a cream-colored blouse, her hair down instead of pulled back. She looked younger, more relaxed. Ryan, she said, standing to shake his hand. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the opportunity, Ryan said, his voice more uncertain than he wanted it to be. Please sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? I'm fine. They sat across from each other at the polished table. Victoria had a folder in front of her but didn't open it immediately. I'm glad you called, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, Ryan admitted. Victoria smiled slightly. Fair enough. So let me start by telling you what we do here, and then you can decide if it's something you'd even be interested in. Over the next 20 minutes, Victoria walked him through Hayes Strategic Protection Group's operations. They had 3 main divisions: corporate security consulting, where they assessed vulnerabilities and developed protection protocols for companies; executive protection, providing trained personnel for high-risk individuals; and training, where they developed and taught defensive tactics to security professionals. We're not bodyguards standing around looking intimidating, Victoria explained. We're strategic. We identify threats before they materialize. We create environments where violence becomes unnecessary because we've already controlled the variables. How'd you get into this? Ryan asked. Victoria's expression shifted slightly, becoming more guarded. I worked corporate consulting for years. Mergers, acquisitions, reorganization. I was good at it, made good money, but I had a client, CEO of a tech company, who started receiving threats, serious ones. The security company they hired was, she paused, choosing her words carefully, incompetent. All muscle, no brains. The CEO ended up getting hurt during what should have been a routine transfer between locations. What happened? The security team panicked when a photographer got too close. One of them shoved the guy, the photographer fell and hit his head. Suddenly, there's a lawsuit and a PR nightmare, and the CEO caught in the middle of it all. And I thought, there has to be a better way to do this. Protection shouldn't create more problems than it solves. Ryan nodded slowly. He'd seen plenty of security operations that operated on intimidation rather than intelligence. So you started this company 5 years ago, started small, just me and 2 contractors. Now we've got 20 full-time staff and another 30 we bring in for specific contracts. She leaned forward slightly. And we're growing fast, which is why I need people who actually understand what they're doing. What makes you think I'm that person? Because you didn't hurt that guy at the restaurant, Victoria said simply. You could have, easily. I saw how you moved. You had complete control of that situation. You could have broken his arm, dislocated his shoulder, put him on the ground in a way that would have sent him to the hospital. But you didn't. You used exactly the amount of force necessary to stop the threat, and no more. That's not just training, Ryan. That's judgment. Ryan was quiet for a moment. I spent a long time learning how to hurt people, he finally said. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not asking you to, Victoria said. I'm asking you to teach people how to protect without hurting. There's a difference. She opened the folder and pulled out several documents. This is what I'm proposing. You'd start as a senior training specialist, developing and implementing defensive protocols. You'd work with our corporate clients, assess their security setups, train their personnel. Some field work would be involved, accompanying clients during high-risk situations, evaluating real-world scenarios, but the focus would be on prevention and de-escalation. She slid a paper across the table. Ryan looked at the salary figure and felt his stomach drop. $95,000. She'd lowballed it on the phone. That's starting salary, Victoria continued. Performance bonuses can add another $15,000 to $20,000. Full benefits, health, dental, vision, 4 weeks paid vacation. And like I said, flexible scheduling. You tell me what hours work around your daughter, and we make it happen. Ryan stared at the number. With that kind of money, he could move out of the apartment. Buy Emma a real bedroom set instead of the hand-me-down furniture they had now. Stop lying awake at night doing math on bills. What's the catch? He asked. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Catch? Nobody offers this kind of money with this kind of flexibility without a catch. She smiled slightly. The catch is that I expect excellence. I expect you to show up prepared, to put in the work, to actually care about what you're doing. I don't tolerate laziness or half measures. And I expect honesty. If something's not working, if you need help, if you disagree with a decision, you tell me. I'd rather have hard conversations than pleasant surprises. That's it? That's it, Victoria paused. Well, that and you'll have to pass a background check, drug screening, the usual. But I'm assuming that's not a problem? It's not. Then the job's yours if you want it. Ryan looked at the papers again, then back at Victoria. Why me? You barely know me. Victoria was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Can I be honest with you? Please? This company is my life's work, she said slowly. I built it from nothing, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. But we're at a point where we could either keep growing or plateau. And the difference between those two outcomes is people. I can teach tactics, I can teach protocol, but I can't teach judgment, and I can't teach that quality you showed at the restaurant, that ability to read a situation and respond with exactly the right level of force at exactly the right moment. That's instinct developed over years of real experience. And it's rare. She met his eyes directly. You're not the first person with military experience I've tried to hire, but most of them either can't let go of the aggressive mindset, or they're so traumatized by what they've been through that they can't function in civilian situations. You're different. You figured out how to integrate what you learned without letting it consume you. That's what I need. Ryan thought about the nightmares he still had sometimes, the moments when loud noises made him flinch, the hypervigilance that never quite turned off. I'm not sure I figured it out as much as you think. Nobody's perfect, Victoria said quietly. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for someone who tries. They sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, Ryan could see the city spread out below, people moving through their lives, completely unaware of the decision being made in this room. "I need to think about it," Ryan finally said. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." Victoria pulled out another card and wrote something on the back. "That's my cell. Call me when you decide. Or if you have questions." Ryan took the card, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything."
Why do you care so much? About doing this right, I mean. Most security companies just want bodies in uniforms.
Victoria's expression shifted, becoming more vulnerable than he'd seen before. "Because I've seen what happens when protection becomes about power instead of safety. I've watched security personnel abuse their authority, escalate situations that should have been simple, hurt people who were just scared or confused, and every time it happens, everyone becomes less safe. The client, the personnel, the public, everyone." She stood and walked to the window, her back to Ryan. "I want to build something better than that, something that actually helps people feel secure without making anyone else feel threatened, and I can't do that alone." Ryan stood as well. "I appreciate your honesty." Victoria turned back to face him. "Before you go, would you mind if I showed you the training facility, just so you know what you'd be working with?" Ryan checked his phone. He had another hour before he needed to pick up Emma. "Sure." They took the elevator down to the second floor, which Hayes Strategic had also leased. The space had been converted into a state-of-the-art training facility. One area had multiple rooms set up to simulate different environments: a corporate lobby, a parking garage, a residential hallway. Another section had a gym with equipment specifically designed for defensive training. A class was in session in one of the simulation rooms. Ryan watched through the observation window as an instructor worked with 4 students on response protocols for aggressive individuals. The instructor was good, calm, clear, focused on positioning and awareness rather than combat techniques. "That's Marcus Chen," Victoria said, "former LAPD, specialized in crisis intervention. He's been with me for 3 years. Good instructor, but his background is law enforcement. I need someone who can bring a different perspective. Someone who's operated in environments where the rules were different and the stakes were higher." They moved through the facility, Victoria pointing out different areas and explaining how they used the space. She introduced him to several staff members who were friendly without being pushy. Everyone seemed competent and professional. In the main gym area, 2 people were practicing defensive holds on the mats. Their technique was solid but textbook. They were doing everything correctly but without the fluid adaptability that came from real experience. "What do you think?" Victoria asked. Ryan watched the practice session. "They're good, well-trained." "But?" He glanced at her, surprised she'd caught his reservation. "But they're thinking too much, following steps instead of reading the situation." "Could you teach them not to?" Ryan considered. "Maybe. It's hard to teach instinct. But you could try." "I could try," he admitted. They headed back upstairs. In the elevator, Victoria said, "I know this is a big decision, and I know I'm asking you to take a risk on something unfamiliar, but I think you'd be good at this, Ryan, really good. I appreciate that. And Emma would have better opportunities, better schools, better health care, more stability. You'd be able to give her the life you want her to have." Ryan felt a flash of irritation. "Don't." Victoria blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't use my daughter to sell me on this. I'm already thinking about what's best for her. I don't need you to remind me." For a second, Victoria looked taken aback, then she nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry. That was manipulative." The elevator opened back on the 4th floor. They walked toward the lobby in silence. At the elevators, Victoria extended her hand. "Thank you for coming in. Whatever you decide, I meant what I said at the restaurant. Thank you for stepping in. Not everyone would have." Ryan shook her hand. "Anyone decent would have. You'd be surprised how many people aren't decent when it actually matters." Ryan left the building and sat in his car for a long time, staring at nothing. His phone rang, his mother probably wondering where he was. He let it go to voicemail. $95,000. A chance to use his skills for something meaningful. Flexible hours. Better life for Emma. He thought about Victoria's eyes when she'd talked about building something better. She believed in what she was doing. Really believed it. That wasn't something you could fake. He also thought about how comfortable she was in that world of glass offices and polished conference rooms. How easily she moved through spaces where he felt like an imposter. They came from completely different places.
but she'd offered him a bridge between those worlds. The question was whether he was brave enough to cross it.
He picked up Emma from his mother's house, and during another round of questions, he deflected with practiced ease. Emma chattered about her day, about the puzzles she'd finished with Grandma, about the cookies they'd baked. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan pulled out his laptop, a 6-year-old Dell that took 3 minutes to boot up, and researched Hayes Strategic Protection Group more thoroughly. He read client testimonials, looked up Victoria's background, checked the company's certifications and credentials. Everything checked out. More than checked out. The company had an impressive reputation. He found an interview Victoria had given to a security industry magazine 2 years ago. The interviewer had asked about her philosophy on protection services. Too many people in this industry think protection means aggression, Victoria had said. They think the best security is the most intimidating security, but that approach creates more risk than it prevents. Real protection is about intelligence, awareness, and creating environments where violence becomes unnecessary. It's about making people feel safe, not afraid. Ryan read the quote 3 times. He thought about the warehouse, about his boss who'd asked him to cover an extra shift this weekend because someone had called in sick, not caring that it was Emma's birthday, about the paycheck that had bounced last month, forcing Ryan to use money from his emergency fund, the emergency fund that was now basically empty. He thought about Emma's upcoming dental appointment and the cavity that needed filling, about her shoes that were getting too small, about the field trip her class was taking next month that cost $40 he didn't really have. Then he thought about what $95,000 could do. His phone was in his hand before he talked himself out of it. Victoria answered on the second ring. "Ryan? I have some conditions," he said. There was a pause, then, "I'm listening. I need to be done by 3 o'clock every day to pick up Emma from school. No exceptions unless I arrange other care in advance. I need flexibility if she's sick or has school events. And I need 2 weeks to give notice at my current job and get childcare figured out." "Done," Victoria said immediately. "Anything else?" "If I don't think this is working, for any reason, I can leave without penalty. I'm not signing any contract that locks me in." "Fair enough, though I should mention that our standard employment is at will anyway. Either party can terminate with 2 weeks' notice." Ryan took a breath. "Okay, then I'm in." He could hear the smile in Victoria's voice. "Really?" "Really. But I still think you might be making a mistake." "I'll take that risk," Victoria said. "Can you start 3 weeks from Monday?" "Yeah, I can make that work." "Perfect. I'll have HR send over the paperwork tomorrow. Welcome aboard, Ryan." After they hung up, Ryan sat in the quiet apartment trying to process what he'd just done. He'd quit his job, committed to something completely outside his comfort zone, put his trust in someone he barely knew. It was terrifying. It was also the first decision in 3 years that felt like moving forward instead of just surviving. Emma's door creaked open. She padded out in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, you're talking loud." "Sorry, sweetheart. Did I wake you?" She climbed into his lap, still half asleep. "Who were you talking to?" "The nice lady from the restaurant, Ms. Hayes." Emma perked up slightly. "Really? Why?" "Because I'm going to work for her, at her company." "Does that mean we'll see her more?" "Probably, yeah." Emma smiled sleepily. "Good. I liked her. She was nice to Mr. Hopsworth." Ryan carried her back to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep, Em." "Daddy?" "Yeah? Is this a good thing? The new job?" Ryan paused in the doorway. "I think so, sweetheart. I really think so." "Okay," Emma yawned. "Love you." "Love you too, kiddo." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Ryan gave notice at the warehouse. His boss barely reacted, just asked if he could work through the weekend. He arranged for Emma to go to after-school care 2 days a week, and his mother to pick her up the other 3. He filled out more paperwork than he'd seen in his entire military career. Background check, drug test, benefits enrollment, tax forms. The background check made him nervous. His military service was largely classified, buried under redactions and security protocols. But whatever Victoria's HR department found, it apparently satisfied them because they cleared him without questions. His last night at the warehouse felt anticlimactic. He turned in his uniform shirt and security badge to a supervisor who barely looked up from his phone. 4 years of overnight shifts reduced to a signature on a checkout form. Emma was excited about his new job in the way kids got excited about things they didn't fully understand. She told everyone at school that her daddy was going to work at an important office with the nice lady who bought them lunch. Ryan's mother was more skeptical. "You're sure about this woman?" she asked when he dropped Emma off the Sunday before his start date. "You barely know her." "She runs a legitimate company, Mom. I vetted it. That's not what I'm asking." Ryan sighed. "What are you asking?" His mother gave him that look, the one that said she could still see through him the way she had when he was 12 years old. "I'm asking if you're taking this job because it's a good opportunity or because you're interested in her." "It's a good opportunity," Ryan said firmly. "The pay is more than double what I was making, the hours work around Emma. It's a smart move." "Uh-huh." "What?" "Nothing," his mother said, but she was smiling in that knowing way that made Ryan want to end the conversation immediately. "I hope it works out, honey. You deserve something good." Monday morning arrived with a knot of anxiety in Ryan's stomach that coffee couldn't touch. He'd bought 2 new shirts and a pair of actual dress pants that fit. Emma had helped him pick out a tie, navy blue with small anchors on it that she'd declared very professional. He dropped her at school early, getting a hug that lasted a bit longer than usual. "You're going to do great, Daddy," Emma said with the absolute confidence only a 6-year-old could have. "Thanks, Em. Have a good day at school." "You too." The Hayes Strategic Building looked even more intimidating on his first official day. Ryan took the elevator to the 4th floor where the same receptionist from his interview greeted him with a smile. "Ryan Carter, right? Welcome. Ms. Hayes asked me to send you to her office when you arrived." Victoria's office was corner suite with windows on 2 walls and a view that probably cost extra. She was on the phone when he arrived, but gestured for him to come in and sit. "I understand your concern," she was saying into the phone, her voice calm but firm. "But our assessment stands. Your current lobby protocols have 3 major vulnerabilities that need to be addressed before we can certify the space as secure. I'm sending over the detailed report this afternoon." A pause. "Yes, I know it'll be expensive. Security usually is. But it's less expensive than a lawsuit after someone gets hurt." She hung up and turned her attention to Ryan. "First day. How are you feeling?" "Nervous," Ryan admitted. "Good. Means you care." She stood and grabbed a folder from her desk. "Okay, so here's the plan. This morning I'm going to walk you through our current training programs and introduce you to the team. This afternoon you'll observe Marcus running a corporate client session. Tomorrow we'll start getting you up to speed on our assessment protocols. Sound reasonable?" "Sounds fine." "Great. Also, and feel free to say no, but Emma's school lets out at 3, right?" Ryan tensed slightly. "Yes. I was thinking, on days when your mom picks her up, maybe she could bring Emma here after school sometimes. We've got a break room with tables she could do homework at, and there's a coffee shop on the ground floor. Just a thought, so you don't have to rush out immediately at 3 on days you're in the middle of something." Ryan stared at her. "You want me to bring my 6-year-old to work?" "Only if it helps. I just thought—" Victoria paused, looking slightly uncertain for the first time since he'd met her. "I just thought it might make the transition easier, but if it's inappropriate—" "No," Ryan interrupted. "It's actually really thoughtful. Thank you." Victoria smiled, looking relieved. "Okay then, ready for the tour?" She walked him through the office, introducing him to what felt like dozens of people whose names he'd never remember. The operations manager, the lead consultant, the HR director, 3 trainers, the IT guy, several administrative staff. Everyone was friendly and professional, welcoming him without making a big deal about it. Marcus Chen, the lead trainer Victoria had mentioned, shook his hand with a firm grip and a measuring look. "Heard you've got some interesting background," Marcus said. "Looking forward to working with you." "Same," Ryan said, not sure what else to add. In the break room, Victoria poured them both coffee and leaned against the counter. "Overwhelmed yet?" "Getting there. It'll get easier. First few days are always information overload." She took a sip of her coffee. "Marcus is going to be your main point of contact for training operations. He's been doing this for a while, knows the systems inside and out. Learn from him, and don't be afraid to push back if you think something could be done better." "He seems reserved," Victoria laughed. "Marcus doesn't trust easily. He'll warm up once he sees what you can do. Just give him time." The morning passed in a blur of procedures, protocols, and systems. Ryan tried to absorb everything while fighting the feeling that he was in over his head. This wasn't like the military, where orders were clear and chains of command were absolute. This was corporate, with layers of client relations and legal considerations and diplomatic approaches to telling people their security was inadequate. By lunch, his head was spinning. Victoria took him to a small Italian place 2 blocks from the office. They sat at a corner table, and Ryan gratefully dug into a meatball sub while Victoria picked at a caprese salad. "So," she said after a few minutes, "honest assessment. What do you think so far?" Ryan swallowed his bite. "I think I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's normal." "Is it? First day?" "Absolutely." Victoria set down her fork. "Look, I'm not expecting you to master everything immediately. There's a learning curve. But you've got the foundation, the tactical knowledge, the situational awareness, the judgment. Everything else is just learning our systems." "What if I can't?" Ryan asked quietly. "What if I'm not cut out for this?" Victoria met his eyes directly. "Then we figure it out together. But I don't think that's going to happen. You're underestimating yourself." "You're the only one who thinks that." "Then everyone else is wrong," she said simply. "Eat your sandwich. We've got a client session this afternoon, and I want you to see what we actually do." The afternoon session was held in one of the simulation rooms. The client was a pharmaceutical company upgrading their executive protection protocols. Marcus led the training with 3 of the company's security personnel, walking them through scenarios involving aggressive protesters, suspicious packages, and unauthorized building access. Ryan watched from the observation room with Victoria, studying Marcus's teaching style. He was thorough, patient, and excellent at breaking down complex responses into manageable steps. But Victoria was right. There was a textbook quality to it. Everything was by the numbers. "What would you do differently?" Victoria asked quietly. Ryan watched as Marcus had the team practice a specific hold for restraining an aggressive individual. "I'd start with reading body language," he said, "teaching them to recognize aggression before it becomes physical so they can de-escalate earlier. The hold is fine, but if you're using it, you've already missed 3 opportunities to prevent the situation." Victoria smiled. "That's exactly what I hired you for." After the session, Marcus joined them in the observation room, wiping sweat from his forehead. "How'd they look?" "Good," Victoria said. "They're learning fast." Ryan was just offering some thoughts on threat recognition. Marcus turned to Ryan with interest. "Yeah? What's your take?" Ryan hesitated, not wanting to criticize, but Marcus seemed genuinely curious. "I think they're focused on response over prevention. They're learning what to do when things go wrong, but not how to spot the signs before they get there." Marcus considered this. "You think we should spend more time on behavioral recognition?" "I think it'd help. Most situations you can see coming if you know what to look for." "Huh." Marcus rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "Might be worth developing a module on that. You want to take a crack at it?" Ryan blinked. "I've been here 8 hours." "So, you've got the expertise. Victoria hired you for a reason." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "Think about it. Could be a good project for your first month." After Marcus left, Victoria turned to Ryan with a knowing smile. "See, you're going to fit in just fine." Ryan wasn't so sure, but he was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, he could actually do this. The day ended with more paperwork and Victoria walking him through the computer systems. At 2:45, she looked up from the training schedule they were reviewing. "You should probably head out. Don't want to be late for Emma." Ryan checked his phone, surprised at how fast the time had gone. "Yeah, thanks. Same time tomorrow?" "I'll be here." He made it to Emma's school with 5 minutes to spare. When she came running out with her backpack bouncing, her face lit up. "How was your first day?" she asked as she buckled into her car seat. "It was good," Ryan said, realizing he meant it. "Really good." "Did you see Miss Hayes?" "All day. She's my boss." "That's good," Emma said seriously. "She's nice. Nice people should be bosses." Ryan smiled as he pulled out of the parking lot. "You're absolutely right, kiddo." That night, after Emma was in bed, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop and started sketching out ideas for a threat recognition training module. He had no idea if Marcus had been serious about him developing it, but the concept had grabbed hold of his brain and wouldn't let go. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Forgot to say, you did great today. See you tomorrow." Ryan stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Thanks for the opportunity." Her response came immediately. "Thank you for taking it." Ryan set his phone down and went back to his notes, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. 6 months passed faster than Ryan thought possible. The threat recognition module he'd sketched out that first night turned into a full training program that Marcus immediately integrated into their corporate sessions. Clients loved it. Finally, someone was teaching their security teams to think instead of just react. Within 3 months, Hayes Strategic was getting requests specifically for Ryan's programs. The money was real. The first paycheck had made Ryan stare at his bank account for a solid 5 minutes, convinced there'd been a mistake. There hadn't been. He'd paid off his credit card debt in 2 months, bought Emma new shoes without checking the price tag first, started actually putting money into savings. They'd moved out of the cramped apartment into a small house with a fenced backyard in a neighborhood with good schools. Emma had her own room, painted purple at her insistence, with actual furniture instead of hand-me-downs. Ryan had bought a reliable car to replace the Honda that had finally died in a grocery store parking lot. For the first time in years, he could breathe. But it wasn't just the money that had changed things. It was the work itself. Ryan had forgotten what it felt like to be good at something, to use his brain and his training in ways that actually mattered. He'd spent so long just surviving that he'd forgotten he could do more than that. And then there was Victoria. They'd fallen into an easy working relationship that had somehow become more than that without either of them quite noticing when it happened. She'd started joining him for lunch a couple times a week, their conversation shifting from business to personal. Her frustrations with a difficult client, his concerns about Emma struggling with math homework, both of them trading stories about their pasts in careful increments. Ryan learned that Victoria had built her company after her father died, leaving her enough money to take the risk, but not enough to coast on. That she worked 16-hour days because she didn't know how to stop. That she lived alone in a downtown condo that was beautiful and empty and felt nothing like home. Victoria learned that Ryan still had nightmares sometimes about missions he couldn't talk about. That he'd met his wife in college before he'd enlisted, back when he thought he'd be an engineer. That raising Emma alone terrified him more than anything he'd faced overseas because there was no training manual for being both parents at once. Emma adored Victoria, which complicated things in ways Ryan hadn't anticipated. His mother had been right to be skeptical. Somewhere along the way, professional respect had shifted into something that made Ryan's chest tight when Victoria smiled at him across the conference table. He hadn't done anything about it, wasn't sure he should. She was his boss. It would be complicated. He had Emma to think about, but he thought about it more than he wanted to admit. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when everything shifted. Ryan was in the training facility working with a group of security personnel from a tech company when Victoria appeared in the observation room window. She caught his eye and held up her phone, mouthing, "Need to talk." He wrapped up the session early and found her waiting in her office. She was pacing, which immediately set off warning bells. Victoria didn't pace. "What's wrong?" Ryan asked, closing the door behind him. "I just got off the phone with the FBI," Victoria said without preamble. "They have a situation. High-risk witness protection case. Federal prosecutor testifying against an organized crime network in 3 weeks. She's received credible death threats, specific, detailed ones that mention her 7-year-old daughter by name." Ryan felt his stomach drop. "They want us to provide protection?" "They want you specifically," Victoria said, turning to face him. "They've reviewed our corporate work. They want the person who developed our threat recognition protocols. They want someone who can operate in a high-stress environment with civilian safety as the absolute priority." "Victoria, I know," she interrupted. "I know what I'm asking. This isn't corporate training. This is field work, real danger, the kind of assignment you left behind." Ryan sat down heavily in one of her office chairs. "How high risk are we talking?" Victoria pulled out a file and handed it to him. "The prosecutor, her name is Jennifer Morrison, has been working this case for 2 years. The organization she's going up against has connections to 3 murders, multiple assaults, extensive racketeering. They've already tried to bribe her. When that didn't work, they started threatening her family." Ryan opened the file. Jennifer Morrison's photo showed a woman in her late 30s with tired eyes and a determined expression. The next photo showed a little girl with dark pigtails, missing her two front teeth. Her daughter's name is Sophie, Victoria said quietly. She just turned 7. Ryan stared at the photo, thinking about Emma, about what he'd do if someone threatened her, about how terrified Jennifer Morrison must be right now. What's the scope? He asked, still looking at the file. Full protection detail for 3 weeks leading up to the trial. You'd coordinate with FBI security but maintain operational independence. Safe house setup, transportation protocols, threat assessment, everything. That's a lot for one person. You'd have support. Marcus can handle things here while you're gone. I'd work with you on the operational planning, and the FBI is providing additional personnel for perimeter security. Ryan looked up at her. You've already said yes, haven't you? Victoria met his eyes. No, I told them I needed to talk to you first. This is your decision, Ryan. If you say no, I'll turn it down and we'll never speak of it again. They specifically requested me. That's going to damage our relationship with them. I don't care, Victoria said firmly. You didn't sign up for this kind of work. I'm not going to force you into it just because it's good for business. Ryan looked back at Sophie Morrison's photo. 7 years old, same age Emma would be in 6 months. Tell me honestly, he said. Can anyone else do this? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Not as well as you. The FBI approached us because they need someone who can think tactically while keeping civilian safety paramount. Most protection specialists with your level of training come from backgrounds where civilian casualties were acceptable losses. You're different. You spent years operating in populated areas where one mistake could turn an entire community against your mission. That's the mindset they need. What about Emma? Ryan asked. 3 weeks is a long time. Your mom could stay at your place, or Emma could stay with her, whatever works better. Victoria paused. I'll make sure Emma's taken care of, Ryan, whatever you need. Ryan closed the file and handed it back to her. I need to think about it. Of course. Take whatever time you need. How long do I have? They need an answer by tomorrow morning. Ryan stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Somewhere down there, Jennifer Morrison was trying to figure out how to keep her daughter safe while doing her job. Somewhere, Sophie Morrison was probably coming home from school, completely unaware that someone wanted to hurt her mother. If I say yes, Ryan said slowly, I need complete operational control. The FBI can provide resources and intelligence, but I make the final calls on protection protocols. Victoria nodded. I'll make sure that's in the contract. And I need 2 days to prepare. Review the case file, assess the safe house location, develop transport routes. I'm not going into this blind. Done. Ryan turned back to face her. Why does this feel like a test? It's not a test, Victoria said. It's a choice. And whatever you choose is the right answer. Is it? Ryan asked. Because part of me thinks I should say no. I've got Emma to think about. I've got a good thing here. Why risk it? Because there's a 7-year-old girl out there who deserves to feel safe, Victoria said quietly. And you're one of the few people who can make that happen. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. I'll let you know in the morning. That night, after Emma was asleep, Ryan sat in his backyard with a beer he barely touched and stared at the stars. The file Victoria had given him was on the table beside him. He'd taken it home against his better judgment. Jennifer Morrison had dedicated 2 years of her life to building a case against people who hurt others for profit. She'd received threats, been offered bribes that could have set her family up for life, kept going anyway because she believed in what she was doing. And now someone was threatening her daughter to make her stop. Ryan thought about what he'd told Victoria 6 months ago, that he'd left the military because he wanted to be a father, not a soldier, that he'd walked away from violence. But this wasn't violence. This was protection. This was using everything he knew to keep an innocent kid safe. His phone rang. His mother. Hey, Mom. You're up late, she said. But everything okay? Ryan smiled slightly. She always knew when something was wrong. How do you do that? Mother's intuition. What's going on? He told her about the assignment, about Jennifer and Sophie Morrison, about the decision he was facing. His mother was quiet for a long moment after he finished. What does Victoria think? She says it's my choice. That's not what I asked, Ryan sighed. She thinks I should do it. I think. She's trying to be supportive either way, but I can tell she believes I'm the right person for this. And what do you think? I think I'm scared, Ryan admitted. Not of the danger. I can handle danger. I'm scared of what happens if I fail, if I miss something and someone gets hurt. If Sophie Morrison ends up traumatized because I wasn't good enough. Oh, honey, his mother said gently, you can't think like that. Why not? It's a legitimate concern. Because that kind of fear will paralyze you. You can't do this job or any job if you're constantly terrified of failing. You can only do your best and trust that your best is good enough. Ryan took a sip of his beer. What would Dad say? His mother laughed softly. His father had died when Ryan was 20, just before he'd enlisted. Your father would say that fear is the price of caring, and that caring is what makes you good at what you do. That sounds like him. He'd also tell you that Emma needs a father who stands up when it matters, not because he's perfect or fearless, but because he knows it's right. Ryan thought about Emma, asleep upstairs in her purple room, about the life he was building for her, about the example he was setting. If I do this, he said slowly, I need you to stay at the house with Emma. 3 weeks. Can you do that? Of course I can, his mother said immediately. You know I love spending time with her. It might be difficult. She's going to ask questions about where I am and why I left. I'll handle it, his mother said firmly. You just focus on keeping that little girl and her mother safe. After they hung up, Ryan sat in the quiet for a while longer. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Victoria. I'm in. Let's keep them safe. Her response came 2 minutes later. I knew you'd say yes. FBI briefing tomorrow at 9. I'll be there with you. The next morning, Ryan and Victoria sat in a secure conference room at the FBI field office downtown. 3 agents were there. Special Agent David Richardson, a grizzled veteran in his 50s who ran organized crime investigations. Special Agent Laura Chen, younger, sharp-eyed, clearly the tactical specialist. And Special Agent Marcus Webb, who apparently handled witness coordination. Richardson did most of the talking, walking them through the case against the crime organization and the specific threats against Jennifer Morrison. They're not subtle, Richardson said, sliding crime scene photos across the table. This is what they did to the last witness who was going to testify. Found him in his car 3 blocks from the courthouse. Ryan looked at the photos without flinching. He'd seen worse. How credible are the current threats? Very, Agent Chen said. We've intercepted communications that specifically mention the prosecutor and her daughter. They've done surveillance on her home, her office, her daughter's school. They know her routine. Have you moved her yet? Victoria asked. We pulled her and her daughter out of their house 2 days ago, Webb said. They're in a temporary location, but it's not ideal for long term. We need a proper safe house set up with professional protection before the trial starts. Show me what you've got for locations, Ryan said. Chen pulled out a laptop and brought up 3 potential safe houses. Ryan studied each one, immediately seeing problems with all of them. This one's too isolated, he said, pointing to a rural property. Single access road means 1 entry point but also 1 exit. If they find you, you're trapped. What about this one? Chen asked, showing a suburban house. Too many neighbors, too many variables. Someone notices something, posts on social media. Suddenly everyone knows there's FBI activity in the neighborhood. And the third? Ryan studied the photos of a townhouse in a medium-density residential area. Multiple exits, decent sight lines, close enough to the city for quick emergency response, but not so conspicuous that it would draw attention. This one could work, he said, but I need to see it in person before I commit. We can arrange that for this afternoon, Richardson said. What else do you need? Complete background on Jennifer and Sophie Morrison. Medical history, dietary restrictions, medications, fears, triggers. If Sophie's afraid of the dark, I need to know that. If Jennifer has a medication she takes at specific times, I need to know that. Webb made notes. We can get you that information. I need to meet with them before we move them to the safe house, Ryan continued. Build rapport, establish trust, explain what's going to happen. They're going to be scared and isolated for 3 weeks. That's a long time, especially for a 7-year-old. They need to know I'm there to protect them, not just control them. Richardson nodded approvingly. Most protection specialists just want to lock their principals in a room and forget about them. You actually sound like you care about their well-being. They're people, not packages, Ryan said simply. Treat them like packages and they'll fight you every step of the way. Treat them like people, and they'll work with you to stay safe. Victoria spoke up for the first time. What kind of support personnel are you providing? 2 agents for perimeter security, rotating 12-hour shifts, Chen said, plus surveillance monitoring from our operations center. Not enough, Ryan said flatly. I need a minimum of 4 personnel for perimeter, 2 on site, 2 as backup, and I need communications equipment that doesn't rely on cell service in case they try to jam signals. That's a lot of resources, Richardson said carefully. That's what proper protection requires, Ryan countered. You want me to keep your witness safe, I need the tools to do it right. Otherwise, find someone else. Richardson and Chen exchanged glances. Victoria hid a smile. We'll make it work, Richardson finally said. What else? They spent the next 2 hours going over details. Communication protocols, emergency procedures, food delivery logistics, medical contingencies. Ryan asked questions the FBI agents hadn't considered, poked holes in their initial plans, and generally made it clear that he wasn't going to accept anything less than optimal. By the time the meeting ended, Ryan had a list of requirements a page long and the grudging respect of 3 federal agents who weren't used to contractors telling them how to do their jobs. In the parking lot afterwards, Victoria leaned against her car and looked at Ryan with an expression he couldn't quite read. What? He asked. That was impressive, she said. You just rewrote the FBI's entire protection protocol and made them thank you for it. Ryan shrugged uncomfortably. They were going to get someone killed doing it their way. I know. That's why it was impressive. Victoria paused. Are you sure about this? It's not too late to back out. I'm sure, Ryan said, surprised to realize he meant it. Scared, but sure. Good scared or bad scared? Is there a difference? Yes, Victoria said. Good scared means you understand the stakes and you're taking it seriously. Bad scared means you're doubting whether you can do this. Ryan thought about it. Good scared, then, I think. Victoria pushed off from her car and stood close enough that Ryan could smell her perfume, something subtle and professional that he'd come to associate with her. You're going to do great, Ryan. I wouldn't have suggested you for this if I didn't believe that. I hope you're right. I'm always right, she said with a slight smile. You'll figure that out eventually. They reviewed the safe house that afternoon, Ryan, Victoria, and Agent Chen. The townhouse was better in person than in photos. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, attached garage, small backyard with a privacy fence. The layout allowed for good internal security and multiple escape routes. Ryan walked through it twice, making notes about sight lines, entry points, places where someone could hide. He tested locks, examined windows, evaluated the garage door mechanism. You're thorough, Chen observed. Thorough keeps people alive, Ryan said, checking the basement stairs. What's the neighborhood like? Mixed professional and retired residents. Quiet. Low crime rate. HOA keeps things looking uniform so one more townhouse doesn't stand out. Good, Ryan pointed to the backyard. I want motion-activated lights here, here, and here, and cameras covering all approaches. We can have that installed by tomorrow. Ryan nodded. Then this'll work. When can we move them in? Day after tomorrow, if that gives you enough time to prepare. It'll have to. That evening, Ryan sat Emma down for a conversation he'd been dreading. Hey kiddo, I need to talk to you about something. Emma looked up from her homework with immediate concern. She'd gotten good at reading his moods over the years. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Ryan assured her, but I have to go away for work for a few weeks. Grandma's going to stay here with you while I'm gone. Emma's face fell. How long? About 3 weeks, maybe less. 3 weeks? Her voice got small. That's a really long time, Daddy. I know, sweetheart, I know it is. Why do you have to go? Ryan had prepared for this question, knowing he couldn't tell her the truth, but needing to tell her something. There's a little girl who's scared, and her mom asked Ms. Hayes' company to help keep them safe. And Ms. Hayes thinks I'm the best person to do that. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. Is the little girl in danger? She might be, but that's why I'm going to make sure she stays safe. How old is she? 7. That's almost my age, Emma said seriously. She thought about this for a long moment, then nodded with the kind of gravity only children could manage. Okay, you should go help her. Ryan felt his chest tighten. Yeah? Yeah, because if I was scared, I'd want someone to help me, and you're really good at helping people. Ryan pulled her into a hug, holding on maybe a little too long. You're pretty amazing, you know that? I know, Emma said into his shoulder. Will you call me? Every single day, Ryan promised, and Grandma's going to spoil you rotten while I'm gone. Will Ms. Hayes visit? Maybe, if she has time. Emma pulled back and looked at him with those two perceptive eyes. You like her, don't you? Ms. Hayes. Ryan blinked. What? You get all weird when you talk about her, smiley and nervous at the same time. Ryan had no idea how to respond to that. She's my boss, Em. So? You can like your boss. Maddie's mom likes her boss, and they got married last year. That's different. Why? Because it just is, Ryan said, feeling completely out of his depth. Now finish your homework. Emma grinned like she'd won something and went back to her math problems. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Ryan met with Jennifer and Sophie Morrison at their temporary location, a bland hotel suite that felt more like a prison than a refuge. Jennifer Morrison was wound tight as a spring, exhausted and terrified, but trying to hold it together for her daughter. Sophie was quiet and withdrawn, clutching a stuffed elephant and refusing to make eye contact. Ryan sat down on the floor so he was at Sophie's eye level. Hi, Sophie. I'm Ryan. That's a cool elephant. Sophie hugged the elephant tighter, but didn't respond. Does your elephant have a name? A slight nod. Can I know what it is? Very quietly. Peanut. Peanut is an excellent name for an elephant, Ryan said seriously. I have a daughter who's almost your age. She has a rabbit named Mr. Hopsworth. That got a slight smile. They talked, or rather Ryan talked, and Sophie gradually warmed up for 20 minutes about stuffed animals and favorite colors and what kind of books she liked. Jennifer watched with a mixture of gratitude and wariness. After Sophie had been coaxed into watching a movie in the other room, Jennifer turned to Ryan with tears in her eyes. Thank you, she said quietly. The other agents, they're good people, but they don't know how to talk to her. She's been terrified. I have a daughter, Ryan said simply. I can't imagine what you're going through. Can you really keep us safe? Ryan met her eyes directly. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure nothing happens to either of you, but I need you to trust me and follow my instructions even when they don't make sense. Can you do that? Jennifer nodded. Whatever it takes. The move to the safe house happened before dawn 2 days later. Ryan coordinated with the FBI team, checking and rechecking every detail. Jennifer and Sophie were transported in an unmarked van with tinted windows. Ryan followed in a separate vehicle, his eyes constantly scanning for anything out of place. The safe house had been transformed. Motion lights installed, cameras covering every approach. Basic furniture that was comfortable without being luxurious. Ryan had specifically requested kid-friendly touches. Sophie's room had been painted yellow with some toys and books already waiting. Sophie's face lit up when she saw her room. It's like Belle's room. Yellow! Ryan caught Victoria's eye. She'd been the one who coordinated the room setup. She smiled and shrugged like it was nothing. They settled into a routine over the first few days. Ryan established protocols that kept Jennifer and Sophie safe while maintaining some sense of normalcy. Meals were delivered, but Ryan always checked them first. Sophie had schoolwork sent over that she completed at the kitchen table. Jennifer worked on trial preparation from a secure laptop. Ryan called Emma every night at 8 o'clock sharp. She'd tell him about school, about what she and Grandma had done that day, about Mr. Hopsworth's latest adventures. Her voice was the only thing that kept him grounded. Victoria called him every few nights, ostensibly to check on the assignment, but really just to talk. She told him about office gossip, about Marcus accidentally locking himself in a storage closet, about the new client who thought their company needed a tiger mascot for some inexplicable reason. How are you holding up? She asked one night. Tired, Ryan admitted. But okay, Morrison and Sophie are doing better. Sophie's starting to come out of her shell. And you're being careful? Always. There was a pause. Emma misses you. She stopped by the office yesterday with your mom. Ryan smiled. Yeah? How'd she seem? Happy. Excited to tell me about her spelling test. She made me promise to tell you she got 100%. She's getting good at spelling. She's getting good at a lot of things. Victoria said softly. You're doing a great job with her, Ryan. Thanks. That means a lot. Another pause, this one longer. Be safe, okay? I know you're focused on protecting them, but don't forget to protect yourself, too. I will, Ryan promised. After they hung up, Ryan sat in the quiet safe house and thought about how much his life had changed in less than a year. How Victoria had taken a chance on an exhausted single dad in a worn-out hoodie and given him a future he'd never imagined. How somewhere along the way, she'd become more than just his boss. He pushed the thought away and went back to work. There'd be time to figure out what that meant later. Right now, he had a job to do. The first real threat came on day 9. Ryan was running through his morning perimeter check when he noticed it, a white sedan parked 3 houses down that hadn't been there the night before. Same model he'd seen twice in the past week in different locations. Could be coincidence. Probably was coincidence. But Ryan didn't believe in coincidences anymore. He texted Agent Chen immediately. White Camry, 3 houses east, plates Hotel Charlie 7294, run it. Her response came back within minutes. Registered to rental company. Checked out 4 days ago to cash customer. No name on file. Ryan's stomach tightened. He circled back to the safe house through the rear entrance, checking sight lines and exposure points. The Camry had a clear view of their front door. Stay away from windows, he told Jennifer quietly when he came inside. She was making coffee in the kitchen while Sophie watched cartoons in the living room. Jennifer's face went pale. What's wrong? Probably nothing, just being cautious. He kept his voice calm, but she'd been around enough law enforcement to know when someone was lying to make her feel better. Should we move? She asked, her hand shaking slightly as she set down the coffee pot. Not yet. Let me handle it. Ryan spent the next 3 hours monitoring the vehicle from different angles, documenting everything. The Camry didn't move. No one got in or out, but someone was definitely inside. He could see slight movements through the tinted windows. Agent Chen arrived with backup at noon, approaching the vehicle with tactical precision. Ryan watched from the safe house camera feed, his hand resting on the sidearm the FBI had cleared him to carry for this assignment. The Camry's driver turned out to be a private investigator conducting insurance fraud surveillance on a completely different house. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong target. Chen verified his credentials and sent him on his way with a warning about parking in the area. False alarm. But Ryan couldn't shake the tension that had settled into his shoulders. The trial was 12 days away. The closer they got, the more desperate the crime organization would become. You okay? Jennifer asked that evening after Sophie had gone to bed. They were sitting at the kitchen table, Ryan reviewing security protocols, Jennifer pretending to work on case notes, but mostly just staring at her laptop. I'm fine, Ryan said automatically. You don't look fine. You look like you haven't slept in a week. Ryan glanced up at her. She looked exhausted herself, the stress of the situation aging her in real time. I sleep enough. When? Because I hear you walking the perimeter at 2 in the morning, and 3, and 4. That's my job. Your job is to protect us, not work yourself into the ground, Jennifer said quietly. You're not going to be much good to Sophie and me if you collapse from exhaustion. Ryan wanted to argue, but she had a point. He'd been running on adrenaline and coffee for over a week, grabbing sleep in 2-hour chunks when he could. It wasn't sustainable. I'll get some rest tonight, he conceded. Chen's team is on perimeter. I can afford a few hours. Jennifer nodded, then hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why are you doing this? I mean, really, the FBI said you're a consultant, that you normally do corporate training. This is completely different. Why take this assignment? Ryan was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. You have a daughter, he finally said. So do I. She's 6. And if someone threatened her, I'd want to know that the person protecting her actually gave a damn about keeping her safe. Not just doing a job, but really caring. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for caring. Sophie's a good kid. You've done a great job with her. I'm terrified I've traumatized her for life, Jennifer admitted, wiping at her eyes. Pulling her out of school, hiding her away like this. She keeps asking when we can go home, and I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth, Ryan said. Not the details, but the truth. That you're doing something important, something that matters, and that requires keeping her safe for a little while. Kids understand more than we give them credit for. Is that what you tell your daughter when you have to go away? Ryan smiled slightly. Something like that. She knows I help people. She's proud of that, even when she misses me. Do you miss her, your daughter? Every single day, Ryan said quietly. But I call her every night. It helps. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening routines. Porch lights coming on, garage doors closing, the normal sounds of suburban life that felt surreal given the circumstances. The FBI thinks I'm crazy, Jennifer said suddenly, for going through with this trial. They've offered me deals, relocations, ways out, but I can't walk away. These people hurt so many families. If I don't testify, no one will. That takes courage. It takes stubbornness, Jennifer corrected with a slight smile. My ex-husband used to say I never knew when to quit. Ex-husband? He left 2 years ago. Couldn't handle the stress of my job, the long hours, the danger. Decided he'd rather start over with someone whose career didn't involve death threats. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. I'm sorry. Don't be. Sophie and I are better off without him. Jennifer closed her laptop. What about you? Your daughter's mother? She died 3 years ago. Car accident. I'm so sorry, Jennifer said, genuine sympathy in her voice. That must have been incredibly hard. It was. Still is sometimes. Ryan stood and stretched, his back protesting from too many hours hunched over security monitors. But you keep going because you have to. For them. For them, Jennifer echoed. Ryan did sleep that night, 4 solid hours. The most he'd gotten since the assignment started. He woke to his phone buzzing with a text from Victoria. Thinking about you, stay safe. He smiled and texted back. Always. How's Emma? She and your mom made cookies yesterday, brought some by the office. Emma gave me a very serious lecture about proper chocolate chip distribution. Ryan could picture it perfectly. Emma with flour on her nose, explaining the precise ratio of chocolate chips to dough with the kind of authority only a 6-year-old could muster. Sounds like her. Tell her I miss her. Tell her yourself. She's planning to call you tonight to discuss important cookie matters. The second threat came on day 14. Ryan was running a routine security check when the FBI's surveillance team flagged suspicious activity 3 blocks away. A vehicle circling the neighborhood multiple times, slowing near their street, then leaving. Different car than before, different pattern, but definitely wrong. Agent Richardson called within minutes. We're tracking them. Black SUV, 2 occupants. They've circled your area twice in the past hour. Have they made the safe house? Ryan asked, already moving to secure the interior. We don't think so, but they're looking for something. Ryan's mind raced through possibilities. They'd been careful. No patterns, no predictable movements, minimal external contact. But if the organization had resources inside the FBI or the prosecutor's office, they could have narrowed down potential locations. I want to move them, Ryan said. Tonight. We don't have another safe house ready. Us. Then get one ready. I'm not waiting for them to confirm our location. Richardson was quiet for a moment. Let me make some calls. 6 hours later, they were packing. Sophie didn't understand why they had to leave her yellow room, and her tears nearly broke Ryan's heart. I know it's scary, sweetheart, he said, kneeling down to her level. But we're going to another house that's even safer, and you can bring all your toys. Even Peanut. Especially Peanut. The move happened at midnight. Ryan coordinated with Chen's team, staggering departure times, using multiple vehicles, taking circuitous routes designed to identify and shake any surveillance. Jennifer and Sophie rode in an unmarked FBI van. Ryan followed in a separate vehicle, his eyes constantly checking mirrors and side streets. The new safe house was in a different suburb, a single-family home set back from the road with good sightlines and multiple escape routes. Not ideal, but better than staying in a compromised location. They arrived at 2 a.m. Sophie had fallen asleep in the van, and Jennifer carried her inside while Ryan cleared the house room by room. The FBI had done a basic setup, but it lacked the personal touches of the previous location. I'm sorry, Ryan told Jennifer as she laid Sophie on an unfamiliar couch. I know this is hard. It's necessary, Jennifer said, though she looked ready to collapse. That's what matters. Ryan's phone buzzed. Victoria. Sorry for the late text. Chen updated me on the move. You okay?
He stepped outside to respond, not wanting to disturb Jennifer and Sophie. Tired, frustrated, but we're secure. You sound stressed. I'm fine. Ryan. Victoria's voice carried a note of concern, even through text. Talk to me. He called her instead of texting back. She answered immediately. Hey, she said softly. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's under control. You're a terrible liar.
Ryan sighed and sat down on the front steps of the unfamiliar house. I just moved them in the middle of the night because someone was circling the neighborhood. Sophie's terrified, Jennifer's barely holding it together, and the trial is still 8 days away. So yeah, I'm a little stressed. You're doing everything right, Victoria said. You identified the threat and neutralized it by relocating. That's exactly what you should have done. Doesn't make it easier. No, Victoria agreed. It doesn't. But it makes it right. Ryan was quiet for a moment, listening to the sounds of the unfamiliar neighborhood. How's Emma? She misses you, but she's okay. Your mom's taking good care of her. And the office? Marcus has everything under control. Stop worrying about us and focus on your assignment. I can't help it. Victoria's voice softened even more. I know. That's one of the things She paused. That's one of your strengths. You care about everyone, but right now Jennifer and Sophie need you to care about them most. I know. Call me if you need anything. Doesn't matter what time. Okay. And Ryan, you're going to get them through this. I know you will. After they hung up, Ryan sat on those steps for another 20 minutes, letting the cool night air clear his head. Victoria's confidence in him should have been reassuring. Instead, it just made him more aware of how much was riding on him not screwing this up. The next week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Ryan maintained strict security protocols, coordinated with the FBI's surveillance teams, and tried to keep Sophie and Jennifer's spirits up while preparing for every possible threat scenario. Sophie had nightmares on day 16, waking up screaming about bad men trying to take her mommy away. Ryan sat with her until she fell back asleep, singing the same lullaby he sang to Emma when she had bad dreams. Jennifer broke down on day 18, the stress finally overwhelming her carefully maintained composure. Ryan made her tea and let her cry, understanding that sometimes people just needed to fall apart for a few minutes before they could put themselves back together. He called Emma every night at 8 o'clock, like clockwork. She'd started counting down the days until he came home, each number a reminder of how much he was missing. 5 more days, Daddy, she announced on day 19. Then you come home and we can have pancakes. Sounds perfect, kiddo. What kind of pancakes? Chocolate chip, with extra chocolate chips, and whipped cream, and strawberries. That's a lot of toppings. It's a celebration, Emma said seriously. Grandma said so. Ryan smiled, his chest aching with how much he missed her. Can't wait, Em. Is the little girl you're protecting okay? She's doing great. She's very brave. Like me. Just like you. Victoria called less frequently as the trial approached, busy coordinating office operations and fielding the increased client demands that came with Ryan's absence. But she still checked in, her voice a lifeline to the world beyond safe houses and security protocols. 3 days to go, she said on day 20. How are you holding up? Ready for this to be over, Ryan admitted. Soon, and then you can come home. Home. The word carried more weight than it should have, loaded with implications Ryan wasn't ready to examine. The trial started on day 22. Ryan coordinated with a full FBI protective detail for Jennifer's transport to the courthouse. Sophie stayed at the safe house with Agent Webb and a protective team while Ryan accompanied Jennifer to her testimony. The courthouse was a fortress, metal detectors, armed guards, K-9 units sweeping for explosives. Jennifer was escorted through a secure entrance surrounded by agents who treated every shadow as a potential threat. Ryan stayed in the background, watching, assessing, his every sense on high alert. He'd studied the building layout, identified every entrance and exit, mapped emergency protocols. If something went wrong, he knew exactly how to get Jennifer out. Her testimony lasted 6 hours. Ryan watched from the security room via closed-circuit cameras, seeing the strength it took for her to face the defendants and tell her story. The organization's members sat stone-faced in the courtroom, but their attorneys were vicious, attacking her credibility, her motives, her character. Jennifer never wavered. When she was finally done for the day, Ryan escorted her back to the secure transport. She was shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline. "You did great," he told her quietly. "I thought I was going to throw up on the witness stand," Jennifer admitted. "But you didn't. You stayed strong and told the truth. That's all that matters." They made it back to the safe house without incident. Sophie ran to her mother the moment they walked in, and Jennifer held her daughter like she'd never let go. The second day of testimony was more of the same. Grueling cross-examination, hostile questions, attempts to break Jennifer's composure. But she held firm, backed by evidence and conviction. On the third day, the prosecution rested its case. Jennifer's testimony was done. Now they just had to wait for the verdict. "How long?" Jennifer asked Richardson when he came to debrief her. "Could be days, could be weeks. Jury deliberations are unpredictable." "We can't stay here for weeks," Jennifer said, her voice rising with panic. "Sophie needs to go back to school, back to her normal life." "We'll figure it out," Ryan interrupted gently. "One day at a time." The verdict came back faster than anyone expected, 4 days after testimony concluded. Guilty on all counts. The relief in Jennifer's face was overwhelming. She sobbed and laughed simultaneously, holding Sophie while the little girl asked what was wrong and why Mommy was crying. "Happy tears, baby," Jennifer managed. "These are happy tears." Richardson called with the news officially. "It's over. The organization's leadership is going away for a long time. The threat against you and Sophie is effectively neutralized." Ryan felt something release in his chest, tension he'd been carrying for 29 days finally letting go. "When can we go home?" Jennifer asked. "We'll need to maintain security for another 72 hours just to be safe," Richardson said. "But after that, you can return to your house. Resume your lives." After the call ended, Jennifer turned to Ryan with tears still streaming down her face. "Thank you for everything, for keeping us safe, for staying patient with Sophie, for making this bearable. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Ryan said. "Just go home and live your life. That's enough." Sophie tugged on Ryan's sleeve. "Are you leaving now?" Ryan knelt down to her level. "Not yet. I'll be here for a few more days, but then I need to go home to my daughter. She misses me." "I'll miss you too," Sophie said seriously. "You're nice, and you make good pancakes." Ryan smiled. He'd made pancakes for her twice during their time in the safe house, chocolate chip both times. "You're pretty great yourself, kid. Take care of your mom, okay?" "Okay." The next 3 days passed in a strange limbo of relief and restlessness. The threat was over, but protocol required them to maintain security until the FBI was absolutely certain no retaliation was coming. Ryan walked the perimeter one last time on the final morning, more out of habit than necessity. The neighborhood was waking up, garage doors opening, coffee brewing, people heading to work. Normal life, completely unaware of the drama that had unfolded in their midst. Victoria called as he was doing his final equipment check. "You coming home today?" she asked. "Yeah. FBI is taking over the final transition. I should be back by this afternoon." Emma's been counting down the hours. She made a welcome home sign. Ryan smiled, his chest warm. "Of course she did." "She's not the only one who missed you," Victoria said quietly. Ryan paused in the middle of coiling a cable. "Yeah?" "Yeah, the office isn't the same without you. It's too quiet. Marcus probably appreciated the peace. Marcus has been complaining that no one's around to debate his training protocols with him." Victoria paused. "I missed our lunches and our conversations and just you." Ryan's heart did something complicated. "I missed you too." "Good," Victoria said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Then I'll see you tomorrow. We can do a full debrief on the assignment." "Tomorrow," Ryan agreed. He said goodbye to Jennifer and Sophie in the safe house driveway. Sophie hugged him fiercely, making him promise to tell his daughter about Peanut the elephant. Jennifer shook his hand, then pulled him into a hug instead. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving us our lives back." "You did that yourself," Ryan said. "I just helped keep you safe while you did it." The drive home felt surreal. Ryan kept checking his mirrors out of habit, kept scanning for threats that no longer existed. It would take a while to turn off that hypervigilance. He pulled into his driveway at 4 in the afternoon. Emma must have been watching from the window because she came flying out the front door before he'd even turned off the engine. "Daddy!" Ryan caught her as she launched herself at him, holding on tight and breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo.
Hey, kiddo, I missed you so much. I missed you more. Look, I made you a sign. She dragged him inside where a banner reading, "Welcome Home, Daddy," in rainbow letters hung across the living room. His mother was standing in the kitchen, smiling. "Welcome back, honey," she said. "Emma's been talking about nothing else all day." "Thanks for staying with her, Mom."
"My pleasure. Now I'm going to head home and let you two catch up." She hugged him, whispered, "I'm proud of you," in his ear, and left. Emma chattered nonstop for the next hour, telling him everything he'd missed: school projects, playground drama, new jokes she'd learned, the cookies she'd made with Grandma. Ryan listened to every word, letting her voice wash over him like a healing balm. That night, after Emma was finally asleep, Ryan sat in his quiet house and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back for 29 days. The fear, the stress, the responsibility of keeping two people safe, the satisfaction of having done it successfully, the bone-deep exhaustion that came from operating at maximum alertness for a month straight. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Sleep well? You earned it." Ryan smiled and texted back, "Thanks for everything, for believing I could do this. I always believed. Now you know you can too." He fell asleep on the couch with his phone still in his hand, more at peace than he'd been in weeks. The next morning, Ryan dropped Emma at school and headed to the Hayes strategic office for the first time in a month. Walking through those familiar doors felt like coming home. Victoria was waiting in her office, and when she saw him, her face lit up in a way that made his chest tight. "You're back," she said unnecessarily. "I'm back." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with something neither of them had named yet. "Coffee?" Victoria finally asked. "Coffee sounds perfect." They walked to the break room together, and Ryan caught Marcus's eye through a conference room window. Marcus gave him a nod of approval and a slight smile. Things were going to be different now, Ryan realized. He'd proven something to himself on this assignment, that he could use his past without being consumed by it, that he could protect people without losing himself. And maybe, just maybe, he was ready to start building something more than just a career. Maybe he was ready to build a future. The debrief with Victoria and the FBI took most of the morning. Ryan walked them through every decision he'd made during the assignment, every threat assessment, every protocol adjustment. Richardson and Chen both acknowledged that his approach had been instrumental in keeping Jennifer and Sophie Morrison safe. "We'd like to contract with Hayes Strategic for future witness protection cases," Richardson said as the meeting wrapped up. "Your methods are different from what we're used to, but they work." Victoria glanced at Ryan. "We'll consider it, but Ryan makes the call on whether he takes field assignments. That's non-negotiable." After the FBI agents left, Victoria closed her office door and turned to face Ryan. "So," she said, "how does it feel?" "How does what feel?" "Knowing you just successfully protected two people for a month under serious threat conditions. Knowing you proved you can do this work at the highest level." Ryan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I did what I was hired to do." "You did more than that," Victoria said firmly. "You kept a scared woman and her daughter not just alive, but emotionally intact. The FBI said Sophie actually seemed happy most of the time you were protecting her. That's not just good security work, Ryan. That's exceptional." "She's a good kid. Made it easy." Victoria smiled and shook her head. "You really don't know how to take a compliment, do you?" "Not really my thing." "Well, get used to it, because word's already spreading. I've had 3 inquiries this morning about our protection services. Everyone wants the consultant who kept the Morrison case from becoming a disaster." Ryan felt his stomach tighten. "I'm not interested in becoming some high-profile protection specialist. That's not why I took this job." "I know," Victoria said quickly, "and I'm not asking you to. But the Morrison assignment proved something important, that our company can handle complex, high-stakes situations. That opens doors for growth. Better contracts, bigger clients, more resources." She paused. "More opportunities to help people who actually need it." Ryan studied her face. "You've been thinking about this." "I've been thinking about a lot of things," Victoria admitted. "The past month gave me time to evaluate where this company is headed. And I realized something. I don't want to just build a successful business. I want to build something that matters. Something that actually makes people safer, not just richer. That's what you've been doing all along. Maybe, but I want to do more of it, and I can't do that without you. The weight of her words hung between them. Ryan walked to the window, looking out over the city. People moving through their lives down there, most of them never knowing how close danger might be, never thinking about the people who work to keep them safe. I need to ask you something, he said without turning around. Anything. Why did you really offer me this job? That first day at the restaurant, you saw me for maybe 5 minutes. That's not enough time to evaluate someone for a senior position. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. You want the honest answer? Always. Because I saw something in you that I'd been looking for in this industry for years, she said slowly. Someone who had the skills but also the restraint. Someone who understood that real strength isn't about how much damage you can do, it's about how much damage you can prevent. And because when I watched you with Emma, I saw someone who'd figured out what actually matters. Ryan turned to face her. And what's that? Protecting the people you love. Building something worth having. Being someone worth being. Victoria met his eyes directly. You'd walked away from a career that probably would have made you successful in certain circles. You gave it all up to raise your daughter. That told me everything I needed to know about your priorities. I didn't have a choice. Emma needed me. You had choices, Victoria corrected gently. You could have let your mom raise her while you deployed overseas for triple the salary. You could have put her in full-time care and worked whatever job paid the most. But you chose to be her father first. That's not nothing, Ryan. Ryan looked away, uncomfortable with being seen so clearly. She's my kid. That's what you do. That's what good parents do, Victoria said, and there are fewer of those than you think. They stood in silence for a moment, the office bustling with activity beyond the closed door. Ryan could hear Marcus running a training session down the hall, the familiar sounds of the company that had become his second home. I got an offer last week, he said abruptly. Victoria's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe concern. What kind of offer? Private military contractor. They somehow got wind of the Morrison case. Offered me $200,000 a year plus bonuses, overseas work, high-risk protection details, the kind of contracts that pay ridiculous money because they're basically legal mercenary work. Victoria's face had gone carefully neutral. And I turned them down within about 5 seconds. Ryan smiled slightly at her visible relief. They seemed shocked, kept increasing the offer like I was negotiating. Couldn't understand why I'd say no to that kind of money. Why did you say no? Because I've done that work. I know what it costs, and it's not worth any amount of money. Ryan moved back toward her desk, leaning against it. I spent years of my life in places where violence was the default answer to every problem, where the only thing that mattered was completing the mission, and everything else was just collateral. And I was good at it, really good. But it hollowed me out, Victoria. By the time I left, I barely recognized myself. Victoria listened without interrupting, her full attention on him. Then Sarah died, and suddenly I had Emma depending on me, Ryan continued, and I had to figure out who I wanted to be for her, what kind of example I wanted to set. And I realized that the person I'd been, the soldier who could execute a mission without hesitation, that wasn't someone I wanted my daughter to know. So you became someone different. I tried to, but I didn't know how to use what I'd learned in a way that felt right. I just buried it, worked a dead-end job, barely survived. Ryan met her eyes. Until you showed me there was another way, that I could use those skills to actually help people instead of just hurting them. That protection and violence aren't the same thing. Victoria's expression had softened. You figured that out yourself. I just gave you the opportunity. You gave me more than that. You gave me a future I didn't think I could have. The air between them shifted, charged with something that had been building for months. Victoria took a step closer. Ryan. A knock on the door interrupted whatever she'd been about to say. Marcus stuck his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a situation with the Dennison contract. Their CEO wants to revise the security assessment, and he's insisting on talking to you specifically, Victoria. Victoria closed her eyes briefly, frustration flickering across her face. Tell him I'll call him in 10 minutes. He's kind of demanding it be now. Then he can wait 11 minutes, Victoria said with forced patience. Close the door, Marcus. Marcus raised his eyebrows, but complied, shutting the door behind him. Victoria turned back to Ryan. Sorry, where were we? You were about to say something. Right.
She took a breath, seeming uncharacteristically nervous. This is probably terrible timing and completely unprofessional, but I've been thinking about this for months and I can't keep ignoring it. Ryan's heart started beating faster. Ignoring what? The fact that somewhere along the way you stopped being just my employee. Victoria held his gaze. And I stopped being just your boss. And we've both been pretending we haven't noticed.
Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it, having no idea what to say. I'm probably making this awkward, Victoria continued, a slight flush creeping up her neck. And if I'm completely misreading this situation, just tell me and we'll never mention it again, but I needed to at least— You're not misreading it, Ryan interrupted quietly. Victoria stopped mid-sentence. I'm not? No. I've been thinking about you for months, about us, about what this is becoming. He ran a hand through his hair. But I kept talking myself out of saying anything because you're my boss. And I didn't want to mess up what we've built here, and I have Emma to consider, and you're overthinking it, Victoria said with a slight smile. Probably. They stood there looking at each other, both of them clearly wanting to close the distance, but neither quite sure how to make the first move. Ryan's phone buzzed. Emma's school. I need to take this, he said apologetically, pulling it out. It's Emma's school. Of course. The call was brief. Emma had a slight fever and needed to be picked up early. Ryan hung up and looked at Victoria with genuine regret. I have to go get her. I know. Go. Family first, Victoria smiled. Always family first. Ryan headed for the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Victoria? Yeah? Can we continue this conversation soon? I'd like that. Ryan picked Emma up from school and spent the rest of the day taking care of her, checking her temperature, making soup she barely touched, setting her up on the couch with blankets and her favorite movies. She wasn't seriously sick, just fighting off something that was going around her class, but she milked the attention for all it was worth. Daddy, can you sit with me? She asked as the credits rolled on her third movie. Sure, kiddo. Ryan settled on the couch beside her, and Emma immediately curled up against his side. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Emma playing with the strings on his hoodie the way she'd done since she was tiny. Daddy? She finally said, her voice small. Yeah, Em? Are you going to go away again? Like you did to help that little girl? Ryan's chest tightened. I might have to sometimes. For work. But never for that long again, if I can help it. Promise? I promise to try my hardest. Emma was quiet, processing this. I was really scared when you were gone. I didn't tell Grandma because I didn't want her to worry, but I kept thinking maybe you wouldn't come back. Like Mommy didn't come back. Ryan felt like he'd been punched. He pulled Emma closer, kissing the top of her head. Oh, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. I'm always coming back to you. Always. You can't promise that, Emma said, with the kind of wisdom that shouldn't exist in a 6-year-old. Nobody can promise that. Mommy couldn't. Ryan didn't know what to say. She was right. He couldn't guarantee he'd always come home. Nobody could. But he could promise to try. To fight like hell to make it back to her no matter what. You're right, he said honestly. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise that I will do everything in my power to come home to you, and that you are the most important thing in my life. More important than any job or assignment or anything else. Emma nodded against his chest. Ms. Hayes says that too. Ryan blinked. What? When she came to visit with Grandma, I asked her if your job was dangerous. And she said sometimes it could be, but that you were really good at staying safe and that you'd always fight to come home because I was your whole world. Emma looked up at him. Did she tell you she said that? No, Ryan said quietly. She didn't. I like her, Emma said, settling back against him. She's nice, and she looks at you the way Aunt Marie looks at Uncle Tom. And how's that? Like she thinks you're really great, Emma yawned. Are you going to marry her? Ryan nearly choked. What? Emma, we're not. It's okay if you do, Emma interrupted. I wouldn't mind having Ms. Hayes around more. She lets me use her fancy pens. Ryan didn't know whether to laugh or panic. How about we focus on you getting better right now and worry about everything else later? Okay, Emma agreed easily, already half asleep. That evening, after Emma was finally asleep in her own bed, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with his laptop and stared at nothing. Emma's words kept echoing in his head. She wouldn't mind if he married Victoria, wouldn't mind having her around more. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. His phone buzzed. Victoria. How's Emma? Better. Sleeping now, just a 24-hour thing, I think. Good. I was worried. Ryan smiled. She told me you visited while I was gone. Your mom invited me over for cookies. Emma insisted I stay for a tea party with Mr. Hopsworth. She mentioned that you told her I'd always fight to come home because she's my whole world. There was a pause. I shouldn't have said that without asking you first. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was the truth. Ryan hesitated. She also said she likes you, and that she wouldn't mind having you around more. Another pause, longer this time. What did you say? That we'd worry about everything else later. Ryan took a breath. But I've been thinking about it. About what you said in your office. About what this is becoming. And I think we should stop pretending we're just colleagues, because we're not. We haven't been for a long time. He could hear Victoria's smile through the phone. No, we haven't. But I need you to understand something, Ryan continued. Emma comes first, always. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, she has to be part of the equation, not an afterthought or something we figure out later. She's been through enough loss. I won't put her through more. I wouldn't want you to, Victoria said softly. Ryan, I care about Emma, not just because she's your daughter, but because she's an amazing kid. And the last thing I'd ever want is to hurt her or disrupt the life you've built for her. Okay, good. Ryan felt some of his tension ease. So where does that leave us? How about dinner? Victoria suggested. The three of us. Nothing formal. Just us getting to spend time together in a way that's honest about what we're feeling. Let Emma see that there might be something here. See how she actually feels about it, instead of just asking hypothetically. Ryan thought about it. She'd like that. She's been asking when we can have lunch with you again. Is Friday too soon? I know a place that has great pasta and makes these chocolate lava cakes that Emma would lose her mind over. Friday works, Ryan said, warmth spreading through his chest. It's a date, or a family dinner, or whatever we're calling it. Let's call it the beginning of something, Victoria said, and see where it goes from there. Friday arrived with Emma practically vibrating with excitement. She'd insisted on wearing her favorite dress, purple with sparkles, and had made Ryan promise they could bring Mr. Hopsworth. He's part of the family, Daddy. He should be there for important things. Ryan didn't argue. They met Victoria at a family-friendly Italian place that managed to be nice without being stuffy. Emma spotted Victoria immediately and ran ahead, getting a hug before Ryan even made it to the table. You look so pretty, Emma announced. So do you, Victoria said seriously. I love the sparkles. They're for special occasions. Daddy said this was special. Victoria glanced at Ryan over Emma's head, her expression soft. It definitely is. Dinner was easy in a way Ryan hadn't expected. Emma dominated the conversation, telling Victoria about school and her friends, and the book she was reading about a girl who discovered she could talk to animals. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions and sharing stories from her own childhood. Ryan watched them interact and felt something settle in his chest. This could work. This could really work. After dinner, Victoria ordered the chocolate lava cake with 3 spoons, and they shared it while Emma declared it the best dessert she'd ever had. Ms. Hayes, Emma said suddenly, her face serious. Can I ask you something? Of course, Victoria said. Do you like my daddy? Like him? Ryan nearly choked on his water. Victoria handled it with more grace, meeting Emma's eyes directly. I do, she said honestly. I like him very much. Is that okay with you? Emma considered this carefully. Are you going to be nice to him? I'm going to do my very best to be. And you won't leave? Like people do sometimes? Victoria's expression crumbled slightly at the question, understanding exactly what Emma was really asking. Emma, I can't promise that nothing will ever go wrong. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise that I care about your dad, and I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere unless you or your dad want me to go, okay? Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied. Okay, then I think it's good. You make Daddy smile more. Ryan felt his throat tighten with emotion. Can I be excused to go look at the fish tank?
Emma asked, already sliding out of her chair. Stay where we can see you, Ryan said. Once Emma was safely occupied watching the large aquarium near the entrance, Victoria turned to Ryan with tears in her eyes. She's incredible, she said quietly. You've done such an amazing job with her.
She's had to grow up too fast, Ryan said. Deal with things no kid should have to deal with.
And she's still full of joy and curiosity and hope. That's because of you. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Emma press her face against the glass, pointing excitedly at different fish. So, Victoria said, I passed the test? With flying colors, Ryan confirmed, though I'm pretty sure the chocolate cake helped. Victoria laughed. I'm not above bribery.
Good to know. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. Victoria laced her fingers through his, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The next 6 months brought changes that felt both monumental and surprisingly easy. Ryan and Victoria navigated their relationship carefully, always keeping Emma's needs at the center of every decision. They went slow, family dinners, weekend outings, movies at Ryan's house, where Emma would inevitably fall asleep between them on the couch. Victoria became a steady presence in their lives without trying to replace Sarah or force herself into spaces where she didn't belong. She showed up at Emma's school events, brought supplies when Emma had science projects due, and taught her how to make a proper PowerPoint presentation for show and tell. Emma flourished with the additional attention, and Ryan found himself falling harder for Victoria every time he watched her interact with his daughter. At work, Hayes Strategic continued to grow. The Morrison case had opened doors to government contracts and high-level corporate clients. Ryan developed new training programs that became industry standards. Marcus finally admitted that having Ryan around made him a better instructor. Don't let it go to your head, Marcus said when Ryan caught him using one of Ryan's threat recognition techniques in a session. I'm just borrowing your good ideas. Sure you are, Ryan said with a grin. Jennifer Morrison stayed in touch, sending occasional updates about how she and Sophie were doing. Sophie had drawn Ryan a picture of him and Peanut, the elephant, saving the day, which now hung in his office at home. But not everything was smooth. Ryan still had nightmares sometimes about missions gone wrong, about threats he'd missed. He still struggled with letting his guard down, with trusting that things could stay good. Victoria had her own challenges, learning how to share control, accepting that she couldn't solve every problem with planning and protocols. Her tendency to work 16-hour days clashed with Ryan's insistence on family time. They had their first real fight on a Tuesday evening when Victoria missed a dinner she'd promised to attend because a client crisis ran late. Emma had been disappointed, and Ryan had been furious in a way that surprised both of them. You said you'd be here, he said when she finally called to apologize. Emma made place cards. She was so excited to show you her science project. I know, and I'm sorry, Victoria said, stress evident in her voice. But this client pays for 20% of our operating budget, Ryan. I couldn't just leave in the middle of a crisis. There's always going to be a crisis. There's always going to be another client emergency. But Emma's only 6 once. You don't get these years back. You think I don't know that? Victoria's voice rose. You think I don't feel terrible about missing dinner? But I have a company to run, responsibilities I can't just ignore. I'm not asking you to ignore them. I'm asking you to keep your promises to a 6-year-old. The silence on the line was heavy. You're right, Victoria finally said quietly. I'm sorry. I should have called earlier, should have managed this differently. I'll apologize to Emma tomorrow. She'll forgive you. She always does. But Victoria, if this is going to work, you have to be present. Not just physically showing up, but actually being here. Emma's had enough people disappoint her. I know, Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. I'll do better, I promise. And she did. She started blocking off time in her calendar specifically for Emma and Ryan, treating those commitments as non-negotiable. She delegated more, trusted Marcus and her other senior staff to handle crises. She learned that being a good partner and being a good CEO didn't have to be mutually exclusive. Ryan learned his own lessons, that not every missed dinner was abandonment, that Victoria was allowed to have priorities beyond their family, that his fear of loss couldn't dictate how he controlled everyone around him. They learned how to be together, messily, imperfectly, but honestly. A year after the Morrison case, Ryan got another offer, this time from a government agency that wanted him to develop training programs for Federal Protective Services. The pay was astronomical, The position was prestigious. It would have been a massive career advancement. He turned it down. Why? Victoria asked when he told her. This is an incredible opportunity. Because it would mean traveling 3 weeks out of every month. Being away from Emma that much. Missing her childhood. Ryan shrugged. I've already got an incredible opportunity right here. Why would I leave it? Victoria kissed him. You're absolutely sure? I'm sure. What Ryan didn't tell her was that he'd been planning something else. Something that terrified him more than any protection assignment ever had. He waited until Emma's 7th birthday party was over, after the last guest had left, and Emma was crashed on the couch in a sugar coma. Victoria had stayed to help clean up, and they were in the kitchen washing dishes when Ryan decided it was time. Can I ask you something? He said, drying a plate. Of course. Do you see yourself doing this long term? This thing we've built together? Victoria paused mid-scrub, looking at him carefully. Are you asking what I think you're asking? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not very good at this. Victoria dried her hands and turned to face him fully. Ryan Carter, are you trying to propose? I might be. Possibly. If you'd be interested. He was fumbling this badly. I don't have a ring yet. I wanted to ask Emma first, and then I was going to plan something nice, but I'm standing here and I want to know if this is what you want too. A life with me and Emma and all the complicated, messy, beautiful parts of what that means. Victoria's eyes were shining. Are you seriously proposing to me while we're doing dishes? Apparently, yeah, I'm really bad at romance. You're not bad at romance, Victoria said, stepping closer. You're exactly who you are. Honest and direct and completely incapable of playing games. And yes, Ryan. Yes, I want a life with you and Emma and all the complicated, messy, beautiful parts. Ryan felt relief flood through him. Yeah? Yeah, Victoria laughed, wiping at her eyes. Though we're definitely telling people you did this better than you actually did. Deal. He kissed her there in his kitchen, surrounded by paper plates and birthday decorations, and it was perfect in its imperfection. Emma woke up 20 minutes later and found them still in the kitchen, now sitting at the table making plans. What are you guys doing? She asked sleepily. Ryan glanced at Victoria, who nodded. Em, come here for a second, Ryan said, pulling out a chair beside him. We need to talk to you about something. Emma climbed into the chair, suddenly more alert. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. Nothing like that. Ryan took a breath. You know how much time Victoria spends with us now? Yeah, she's here all the time. It's nice. What would you think if she was here all the time? Like, if she moved in with us, and we all became a family, officially? Emma looked between them, processing. You mean like getting married? Yeah, like that. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Ryan's heart pounded while he waited. Would she be my mom then? Emma finally asked quietly. Victoria leaned forward. I would never try to replace your mom, Emma. She was important and special, and no one could ever take her place. But I would be someone who loves you and takes care of you and is here for whatever you need, if that's okay with you. Emma thought about this seriously, her face solemn in a way that reminded Ryan she'd been forced to be older than her years. Can I call you whatever I want? Emma asked. Absolutely, Victoria said. Whatever feels right to you. Okay, Emma nodded decisively. Then yes, I think it's good. You make Daddy happy, and you teach me cool stuff, and you always remember that I don't like pickles. Ryan laughed, emotion thick in his throat. Those are excellent reasons. Can we tell Grandma? Emma asked, already excited. She's going to be so happy. She told me last week that you and Ms. Hayes were good for each other, but she didn't think Daddy would get his act together anytime soon. Your grandma said that? Ryan asked. Yep. I didn't know what it meant, but now I do. Emma yawned. Can I go back to sleep now? Go ahead, kiddo. After Emma had shuffled back to the couch, Victoria turned to Ryan with a smile. Well, that went better than expected. My mom thinks I needed to get my act together, apparently. Your mom is a wise woman. They got married 6 months later in Ryan's backyard, surrounded by family and friends and Hayes' strategic staff who'd become family too. Emma was the flower girl, taking her job incredibly seriously and making sure every petal was perfectly placed. Marcus served as Ryan's best man and only teased him minimally about getting sappy. Jennifer and Sophie Morrison came to the wedding, Sophie clutching Peanut and telling everyone about how Ryan had kept them safe. She and Emma bonded immediately over their shared love of stuffed animals and immediately started planning a play date. Ryan's mother cried through the entire ceremony and told Victoria afterward that she'd been waiting for Ryan to find happiness again since Sarah died. "Take care of my boy," she said, hugging Victoria tight. "I will," Victoria promised. "He takes pretty good care of me, too." The reception was casual and warm, full of laughter and terrible dancing, and Emma giving a toast that mostly consisted of her explaining how Victoria had finally learned to make pancakes the right way, with extra chocolate chips. As the evening wound down and guests started leaving, Ryan found himself standing at the edge of the backyard watching Emma and Sophie chase fireflies while Victoria talked with Jennifer. Marcus appeared beside him with 2 beers, handing one over. "You did good, man," Marcus said. "Thanks. Never thought I'd see the day. You were so determined to keep everyone at arm's length when you first started." Ryan smiled. "Victoria didn't give me much choice. She saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. That's rare." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the party. "You know what the best part is?" Marcus said. "You figured out how to use everything you learned, all that training, all those hard experiences, in a way that actually builds things instead of destroying them. Not a lot of people manage that transition." Ryan thought about the person he'd been 4 years ago, exhausted, barely surviving, convinced his past was something to escape rather than integrate. Then he thought about who he was now, a father, a husband, a professional who helped keep people safe without losing himself in the process. "I had help," Ryan said simply. "Yeah, you did. But you still had to do the work." Victoria appeared at Ryan's other side, slipping her hand into his. "What are you two discussing so seriously?" "Just telling Ryan he's done well for himself," Marcus said. "Don't let it go to his head." "I'll do my best," Victoria said with a smile. Marcus excused himself to help with cleanup, leaving Ryan and Victoria alone at the edge of their celebration. "Happy?" Victoria asked quietly. Ryan pulled her closer, watching Emma's delighted laugh as she caught a firefly. "Yeah, really happy." "Good, because I have news that might make you even happier." Ryan looked down at her. "Yeah?" Victoria pulled a folder from seemingly nowhere. She always had a folder, and handed it to him. "I've been working on this for a few months. Wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you." Ryan opened it and found plans for a new division of Hayes Strategic, one focused specifically on training programs for at-risk youth, teaching conflict de-escalation and protective skills to kids who needed them most. "I want to use everything we've built to actually help kids," Victoria said. "Teach them how to stay safe, how to protect each other, how to recognize and avoid dangerous situations. And I want you to run it." Ryan looked at the plans, then at his wife, with tears in his eyes. "Victoria, this is something that matters," she finished. "We've got the resources now. We've got the expertise. We can actually make a difference for kids like Emma, like Sophie Morrison. Kids who need someone to teach them that they're worth protecting." Ryan kissed her, not caring that they were in the middle of their wedding reception. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" "Once or twice," Victoria said against his lips. "But I never get tired of hearing it." Emma came running over, Firefly safely released back into the night. "Daddy, Victoria, come dance! They're playing the good songs!" She grabbed both their hands and dragged them toward the makeshift dance floor, where a terrible pop song from Emma's favorite movie was blasting. They danced together, all 3 of them, and Ryan thought about how far he'd come from that exhausted single dad in a corner booth at Riverside Terrace Cafe. He'd been so focused on just surviving back then, on getting through each day without falling apart. He'd thought the best he could hope for was keeping his head above water. But Victoria had shown him something different. That survival wasn't the same as living, that his past didn't have to define him, it could inform him. That the skills he'd learned in the darkest parts of his life could be used to bring light to others. She'd given him a future when he thought he'd already used up his chances at happiness. The party went late into the night. After the last guests had finally left and Emma had been carried to bed by Ryan's mother, who'd volunteered to keep her for the night, Ryan and Victoria stood in their backyard looking at the mess of decorations and empty tables. "We should probably clean this up," Victoria said without much enthusiasm. "Or we could leave it for tomorrow," Ryan suggested. "You're a terrible influence." "You married me anyway." Victoria laughed and leaned into him. "Best decision I ever made." They stood there together under the stars, tired and happy and surrounded by evidence of a celebration that had brought together all the pieces of their complicated, beautiful life. "You know what I realized today?" Ryan said quietly. "What's that?" "That restaurant where we met, Riverside Terrace Cafe. I haven't been back there since that day. We should go sometime. Take Emma. Show her where it all started." "Where you defended my honor against those entitled jerks?" "Where you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself," Ryan corrected. "Where you took a chance on a guy who looked like he was barely holding it together." "You were holding it together just fine," Victoria said. "You just needed someone to notice how strong you already were." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "I noticed something else today." "What?" "Jennifer Morrison told me she's going back to school, getting her law degree. Said if she could survive testifying against a crime organization, she could handle law school." "That's amazing." She said it was because watching us build something after everything we'd both been through gave her hope that she could do the same, that she didn't have to let the hard parts define her whole story. Victoria was quiet for a moment. "We do that, build things, even when it's scary, even when it's hard." "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "We do." They stood in the quiet for a while longer before finally heading inside to start their life together as a married couple. Upstairs, Emma's room held evidence of a little girl who felt safe and loved and secure in a way that had seemed impossible 4 years ago. Ryan Carter had spent years learning how to protect others. But somewhere along the way, Victoria Hayes had taught him that the bravest thing he could do was let someone protect him too. Let someone see his broken parts and love him anyway. Let himself build a future instead of just surviving his past. The man who once survived war had discovered something even more powerful than tactical training or combat skills. He discovered that sometimes the real courage isn't in fighting, it's in choosing to heal, in choosing to hope, in choosing to believe that better days are possible if you're willing to work for them. And as Ryan checked on Emma one last time before bed, watching her sleep peacefully with Mr. Hopsworth tucked under her arm, he understood that every hard decision, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt had been worth it, because he'd found his way home, not to a place, but to people, to purpose, to a life built on protecting what mattered most. And that was worth more than any mission, any paycheck, any accolade. That was everything.